Goo Deok, since birth, had to inherit the slave fate of their parents, a family of 3. They lived like animals under the master's command, to the point of witnessing death without being saved. Life was worse than that of beasts. The young mistress treated Goo Deok Yi very cruelly. When she was sad, she would hit and scold. She shows no mercy. Just one small mistake and she immediately pulls hair, or breaks the legs of the snail. Despite the cruel fate, the snail refuses to be defeated. Her biggest dream is to escape with Dad to the west coast, where both can live freely. To fulfill her dream, Goo Deok often secretly sold peanuts on the street. The savings kept growing. Until she had enough, she believed that the day of escape was not far away. One day, Goo Deok went to her mother's grave to pray. May she bless her and her father with peace, to escape from that hell on earth. Her mother's death is a pain that will never fade from Goo Deok Yi's heart. That year, her mother only had a mild cold, but because they couldn't afford medicine, her illness worsened day by day. When she could no longer endure it, her father carried her mother to beg for help from others. Goo Deok knelt down and begged the master for mercy. However, they showed no compassion. Instead, they drove Goo Deok's family out. Finally, her mother was buried alive. Goo Deok and her father continued their life as slaves. A life like death. Meanwhile, the master was arranging a marriage for his daughter with the eldest son of a prestigious family. I heard that this young master is crazy and suffers from mania. The servants in the house mockingly said, a madman meets a cruel person. It's truly a match made in heaven. A pair was moved to that crazy young master. The guy's name is Naeun. Although he is considered strange, he has a passion for writing and painting. Still considers himself an artist, but to the Chao Kui family, he is just a useless person. The stepmother wanted to drive him out of the house. She arranged for him to marry the daughter of a newly wealthy family, who is also the young lady that Goo Deok is serving. One day, the young master SEO disguised himself and went to the market with his servant. His main purpose was to see if his wife was beautiful. There, he accidentally ran into Goo Deok, who was secretly selling peanuts. Afterward, upon seeing the young lady, the two of them fled to the mountain. They watched a play being performed below. Then, they shared their opinions. Goo Deok shared that for poor people like her, what matters is not whether the play is well performed. Whether good or bad, it's a time when they can temporarily forget the pain in life. Goo Deok's words touched Naeun's soul. Until now, he only cared about personal passion, without thinking about the true meaning of art. In fact, art is something that brings joy and hope to the suffering people. When parting, Naeun gifted Goo Deok a jade pendant and advised him to use it when needed. At night, Naeun increasingly thought about Goo Deok. But ironically, Goo Deok was the servant of the fiancé he was about to marry. If both had equal status, he's sure he'll confess his feelings. And Goo Deok, every night, she silently takes out the jade pendant to admire it. Her heart is full of unspoken emotions, unable to put them into words. Naeun's words still echo in Goo Deok's ears. She wonders what her biggest dream is. Goo Deok imagines a small house by the sea, where you and father can live freely. That is the dream you have had all your life. The next day, the young lady goes to the young master's house to discuss marriage. Goo Deok, wanting to earn more money, has hidden. The young lady sneaks in to work as a cook in the house of the young master. Naeun just brought it out to sell. This woman tasted one and immediately recognized it as Goo Deok's handiwork. Enraged, she stormed into the kitchen to catch Goo Deok. Luckily, young master Naeun's servant quickly warned Goo Deok beforehand. Not knowing where to hide, she hastily abandoned everything and ran away. Unexpectedly, in the panic, Goo Deok wandered into Naeun's garden. Before they could talk, a storm came, and the mother brought the young lady into the garden. She then asked the two of them to stay privately to talk. The young master quickly hid Goo Deok behind a screen. The young lady wanted to show off her knowledge, trying to appear intelligent, by talking about the book The Tale of the Eastern Journey. Actually, it was Goo Deok who read this book for her to listen to. However, she only understood vaguely but pretended to ask questions and such. How does he know this young lady knows nothing at all? So he immediately asked a few questions and she was instantly exposed. At this point, the young master frankly exposed her true nature, revealing that the young lady was nothing but a cruel person, who had even buried her servant alive. Everything she boasted about was done by her maidservant. I will never marry a woman like you. He then announced the cancellation of the engagement. Goo Deok hid behind the screen, so surprised that she made a noise. So he discovered and pulled aside the screen, finding Goo Deok hiding there. She was furious, accusing Goo Deok of plotting to ruin the wedding and falsely claiming she was having an affair with Naeun. Things escalated when the young master's mother arrived. Naturally, she believed the young lady's words and slapped Goo Deok before sending her away. Upon returning home, so he ordered Goo Deok's punishment. They beat her nearly to death. Her frail father still tried his best to protect his daughter. In pain, Goo Deok raised a finger. This was a secret signal between Goo Deok and her father. It meant that the day had come. We have to escape. The young lady refused to give up her revenge. She decided to humiliate Goo Deok by sending someone to wash her clean and bring her to the master's room for entertainment. But when she entered, Goo Deok suddenly drew a weapon hidden on her and attacked the master. Blood spilled everywhere throughout the room. The servant rushed in just in time to pull Goo Deok's away. The young lady wanted to punish her herself, but Goo Deok held her hand tightly. and then dumped a bucket of sewage over her head. Before running away, Goo Deok Yi met the father at the prearranged place, and both of them began their escape to the coast, even though the young lady's family reported to the authorities and soldiers were hunting them down. But luckily, the household servants secretly helped them escape. On their journey across the white snow, father and daughter reached an inn, but unfortunately, her father dropped his money bag into the river. Goo Deok Yi comforted her father. "Let's just take it one step at a time, and everything will be all right." They spent the night at an inn. But the next morning, Goo Deok Yi woke up to find her father had disappeared. It turned out that to avoid involving his daughter, her father had quietly left. Goo Deok Yi was heartbroken and desperate. She searched everywhere nearby but couldn't find him. Then Goo Deok Yi decided to stay at the inn and work there, earning a living and waiting for the day to see father again. A year has passed. Goo Deok Yi still hasn't received any news from father. The innkeeper felt sympathy for her situation, so they treated Goo Deok Yi like their own child and cared for her diligently. One cold winter day, a group of guests stopped by the inn. In the group was Miss Tae Young, the daughter of an aristocratic family. However, she is not like other young ladies. Tae Young is very compassionate. She even buys medicine for the servants in the house. However, since Tae Young grew up in a different place, her mother and the servants have never met her. In the following days, Tae Young and Goo Deok Yi quickly became close. But Goo Deok Yi thought the young lady was pitying him. However, Tae Young expressed, "I've never thought that my background makes me superior to others. On the contrary, the more I have, the more responsible I should be towards others." After befriending the young lady, Goo Deok Yi gradually opened up more. This is the first time she has met a young lady of noble birth, who is so kind and sincere. Goo Deok Yi is very impressed by the lady's kindness. The innkeeper recognizes that father and Tae Young are good people, so she asks them to adopt Goo Deok Yi. She worries that if Goo Deok Yi stays here, she will always be targeted by bad people, but she can't protect you forever. Tae Young left home when he was little. You're not familiar with AI. When he returned, Tae Young immediately asked his father to adopt Goo Deok Yi as his daughter, and promised to treat her like a sister. When his father agreed, the innkeeper gave Goo Deok Yi the luxurious outfit, then return the jade pendant to her. She hopes this daughter will have a happy life with Tae Young. At this moment Tae Young also gave Goo Deok Yi the noble ring she left behind, as a confirmation of their close relationship. However, the joy didn't last long before disaster struck Goo Deok Yi. That very night, a group of bandits attacked the inn to loot. They set fire to the place and killed Father Tae Young. Along with the innkeeper, Goo Deok Yi managed to pull the young lady into an empty room, but the bandits discovered them and couldn't break down the door, so they set the room on fire. During the fire, Goo Deok Yi desperately looks for a way to escape, but Tae Young is pinned down by a log on his leg, unable to move. Seeing the flames quickly approaching them, Tae Young uses all his strength to push Goo Deok Yi out, and sacrifices himself in the sea of fire. Later, when he wakes up, Goo Deok Yi discovers he is at Tae Young's house. He sees Tae Young's grandmother. She immediately calls out that Tae Young is awake. Goo Deok Yi understands that she mistook him for young Miss Tae Young because of the ring on his hand. To avoid upsetting her, Goo Deok Yi temporarily accepts he is young Miss Tae Young. But not long after, she decided to kneel before her grandmother and confess the whole truth. She is not Tae Young, but just a maid named Goo Deok Yi. After hearing this, her grandmother was very shocked and heartbroken to learn that her granddaughter had passed away. She asked why Goo Deok Yi was wearing silk clothes and the ring of Tae Young. With tears rolling down her cheeks, Goo Deok Yi recounts that the young lady's father had intended to adopt her, and it was Lady Tae Young who gave her the ring. And she also said that she knew the bandits caused the tragedy because she had seen them while gathering herbs in the forest, and still clearly remember their hideout. She instructed Goo Deok Yi to continue pretending to be Tae Young, because if her identity as a maid was revealed, her family would be in big trouble. Under the guise of Tae Young, Goo Deok Yi helped the servants in the house with many tasks, from bookkeeping to write a reply to the Ladies' Association. This association is not very pleasant either. When Mrs. Tang's family faced trouble, they laughed and talked. Usually they pretend to write letters of concern, but in reality, it's to mock. However, how to prevent them from humiliating? So she wrote a reply on behalf of her. Goo Deok Yi used elegant yet sharp words to keep in braids, making them angry but unable to retaliate. When Lady Tae Young found out that Goo Deok Yi was skillful in embroidery, clever in calculation, and could write and paint, she was very grateful. One day, the magistrate summoned Goo Deok Yi to identify the murderer of the young lady's family. When facing the perpetrator, Goo Deok Yi removed her face covering and looked directly at them, speaking sharply. She listed what they had stolen, not just possessions, money, but also the noble dreams they had stolen. The person you killed, who could have helped countless others. Even if you go to hell, sins cannot be erased. After the revenge is successful, Goo Deok Yi brings the gifts that Tae Young prepared and gives them to everyone. To Tae Young's grandmother, she gives a pot of aloe vera. According to Tae Young, this plant signifies that aloe vera is very resilient, just like you. Those short days together made Goo Deok Yi feel your love, and she advised you to take care of your health and live a long life. That night, Goo Deok Yi returned the clothes and the ring to you, then intended to leave quietly, but you unexpectedly appeared. She took her hand, placed the ring back on her finger, and said she would adopt the child as Tae Young's wish. You should stay and live on for Tae Young. Because she sacrificed herself to help you live, you must become her. Then time flew by quickly like a dog running in the field. 2 years have passed. Goo Deok Yi gradually became a true lady. However, her husband still prefers to sleep on the floor. He still keeps the habit of sleeping on the ground. The hardness of the floor serves as a reminder that she must not forget the past and the path she has traveled. One day, she went to Hanjung to visit her brother, leaving her husband at home. This guy, she calls him Little Lord. Baiji went outside to buy books. When he heard the news that a famous person was coming to the village to perform, he is known by the nickname Jeonhee. Then Baiji ran back from the market, excitedly announcing that the famous artist Jeonhee is about to perform here. However, Goo Deok had never heard of this person before, but Baiji immediately said that Jeonhee was a talented artist, who once wrote a love story about an artist who loved a peanut-selling servant, and gave that person a jade pendant as a keepsake. Hearing this, Goo Deok felt the plot was very familiar. It felt like she had encountered it somewhere before. Reading carefully, she recognized a passage from a book. It was the scene where she used to hide behind the screen, at the home of the young master Sion. It turns out that the storyteller Jeonhee was seen in. Back then, Baggy revealed that Jeonhee had roamed everywhere, in hopes of finding the servant from long ago. That night, encouraged by her sister Baggy, Goo Deok went to watch the performance. Jeonhee transforms into 2 characters, accurately recreating the story between him and Goo Deok from before, set against the backdrop of the ocean that she always yearned for. While passionately performing, Jeonhee sees Goo Deok in the crowd. He emotionally calls her name. However, Goo Deok panics and turns to run away. Baggy, noticing the complex expression on Goo Deok's face, a mixture of shyness and embarrassment, I immediately thought that Jeonhee was her boyfriend. To help Miss Goo Deok, Baiji arranged for the 2 of them to meet. During the meeting, Jeonhee confessed that he had fallen in love with her at first sight. Becoming a famous artisan is the way he hopes that one day he can meet her again. But Goo Deok coldly says, "Are you simple?" He fell in love with her after just 2 meetings. However, Goo Deok also knows that the person he likes is Miss So-hee, not her. They only met twice, there was no deep affection. She also warned him that writing about her could expose her as a slave. Jeonhee didn't give up. The next day, he secretly went to Goo Deok's house, and without a word, took her to the beach. Here I have built a wooden house. This is the dream that Goo Deok once shared with me. I told that after leaving home. I went to live in the place where my birth mother used to work. It was a brothel. There, I told stories and read books to the courtesans, and gradually realized the happiness that art brings. To protect the family from scandal, he changed his name, wore a mask, and lived true to his real self. Jeonhee advised Goo Deok to also live for himself, to let go of the obsessions of the past. Goo Deok always longed for a life of freedom, not confined within 4 walls like a prisoner. Before leaving, Jeonhee earnestly told her, "Tonight, I will leave here. I hope you will go with me. We will search for your father together, traveling across the country, living a free and meaningful life." The words of Jeonhee awakened in Goo Deok Yi a longing. But when she returned home, she discovered her sister Big Y had passed away, with a suspicious wound on the back of her head. Although the autopsy results confirmed it was suicide, the servants suspected something unusual. They said they hadn't seen Biggie that morning. So they split up to search and found her dead by suicide in the woods. Some servants pointed out that the most suspicious person was Mrs. Song's son, Daewang. That guy is also a simboy who secretly loves Baggy. Goo Deok wants to go straight to the district office, requesting a reinvestigation. But Baggy's cool mother stopped her. She said they treat the lives of the poor like trash. For Baggy, she shouldn't risk the identity she has hidden for so long. Listen to me and leave with Jeonhee. Biggie only wishes for you to be happy. Remembering her mother's death and the years of abuse, Goo Deok broke down in tears. Then she painfully exclaimed, "Biggie is your friend. She cannot let her leave unjustly." Not long after, Goo Deok sought out Jeonhee. She returned the jade pendant and spoke frankly. "I live for Tae Young. I must fulfill her wish to stay and help everyone." John smiled softly, because he always respected her decision, and said goodbye. Meanwhile, Mrs. Mark, heartbroken, rushed straight into the lady's house. She demanded that the madam's son pay for Baggy's life. However, the madam pretended not to know anything, even though she was aware of the situation. She even claimed that her son was innocent. After that, she was brutally beaten by the madam. She even ordered that she be killed as an example. Just at that critical moment, Goo Deok Yi appeared. This time, she removed her face covering, appearing publicly before everyone. The lady still acted insolently, not caring about anyone, but the district magistrate has invited officials to arrest her, with evidence that the autopsy report was forged. The district magistrate ordered the arrest of her family for investigation even though he tried to uphold justice. The noble class of hers, but they are united, pressuring her to be falsely accused. The nobles want to use her as an example to extinguish the rebellion of the slaves. Goo Deok refuses to give up. She goes to find the district magistrate but is stopped by the guards. With the determination to save her, Goo Deok risked climbing the wall into the courthouse. Immediately upon entering, she unexpectedly met a young man who looked exactly like Jeonhee. A stunned Goo Deok asked, "Why are you here?" But the young man only looked at her with confusion. He completely didn't understand what was happening. The young man remembered meeting someone who looked just like him before, so he knew the woman in front of him was mistaken. Therefore, he explained to her that Goo Deok had mistaken him for Jeon Hee. He quickly explained that he wasn't Jeon Hee, but Sung Yoon, the son of the newly appointed county magistrate. Sung Yoon clarified that the district chief has known for a long time that this area has been manipulated by the Liu family, and he is determined to suppress their power. After that, Sung Yoon suggested helping Goo Deok investigate Baggy's case again and uncover the truth. He even proposed that if Goo Deok wants to protect Mrs. Matt and demand justice for Baggy, she should become the lawyer in this case, even though she's worried about her lack of legal knowledge. However, with Sung Yoon's help, Goo Deok can look up legal books at the county library. From that day on, under Sung Yoon's guidance, Goo Deok began to study the laws related to the case. She promised Sung Yoon that if she succeeded, she would find a way to repay his kindness. While Goo Deok was diligently preparing for the lawsuit, the noble family tried to reach a settlement. They offered 30 silver taels, equivalent to the value of a horse, as compensation for Baggy's family. However, Goo Deok angrily refused, emphasizing that Baggy's life was priceless. Even if they offer a house or valuable possessions, they cannot compensate for Baggy's life. She declares that she will take the case to court to seek justice in the light of the law. Goo Deok's determination astonishes everyone. Even Sung Yoon cannot help but admire her. That night, a servant of the Baek family named Do came to find Goo Deok to confess his sins. In tears, he recounted the horrifying truth. Ngwin, the young master, secretly loved Baggy and wanted to elope with her, but Mrs. Song strongly opposed because she would not accept a servant as her daughter-in-law. She had kidnapped Baggy, then ordered Yosuk to humiliate her in front of Wang to break their bond. While resisting, Baggy fell and hit her head on the floor, leading to her death. To cover up the incident, Mrs. Song staged the scene as if Baggy committed suicide out of despair. Upon learning the truth, Goo Deok couldn't hold back her tears. She asked Suk what Baiji said before he died. He hesitantly recounted. Baiji said he'd rather die than see the woman he loved have to witness her humiliation, taking the memento Baiji left behind. Goo Deok sought out young Master Daewang. Upon learning that Baggy had always cherished the stone he gave her, Daewang wept uncontrollably. He admitted that he had loved Baggy for a long time, but he always thought that his feelings were not reciprocated. The truth is that Baggy also loved him, but had to endure the tragedy of their social status difference, which left her feeling troubled. After knowing that Wang was the reason for Baggy's death, Goo Deok can't force him to testify against his own parents. She understands that Do Young is someone Baggy loves, so she doesn't want to hurt him anymore. Returning, Goo Deok decides to release Do Young, because in this case, he is the one who unintentionally caused the death. Baggy, as a slave, must obey his master. If not, they will face death. She also doesn't want to save Mrs. Matt but has to sacrifice another life. The next day, the district chief announced that due to lack of evidence proving the bitch family murdered Baggy, the lawsuit cannot be established. Mrs. Matt was charged with defamation and must accept a 10 ROI penalty to protect Madam Matt. Goo Deok took full responsibility, saying that she was the one who incited Madam. When she was willing to accept the punishment, young Master Daewang finally couldn't bear the torment of his conscience. He stepped forward and confessed to being Baggy's killer. The magistrate immediately ordered Daewang's arrest. At the same time, he enacted a new law, prohibiting the use of family rules to punish servants without justifiable reason. This law was enthusiastically supported by the people. Goo Deok led the people in holding a memorial service for Baggy, praying that in her next life she would be free and happy. Over here, the nobles continue to plot to win over the county official who planned to take a girl as a bride for their family. However, Sung Yoon realized that the person her brother wanted to marry was none other than Goo Deok. When Sung Yoon's father, Kyu Jin, sent a letter proposing marriage to Goo Deok's grandmother, she agreed immediately out of gratitude for the Sung Yoon family. But Goo Deok was afraid. If her servant identity were revealed, she worried the entire magistrate's family would face trouble. So before the wedding, she decided to tell Sung Yoon the truth. When she met him, she told him everything about her true identity. But surprisingly, Young Yoon also revealed a secret that he didn't want AI to know. In fact, he was gay in a society at that time. If discovered, he would face the death penalty. He pleaded with Goo Deok to marry him because their secrets were very similar. Both were things they didn't want AI to know. If they married, the identity of the wife would protect her, and this marriage is also the perfect facade for him. After careful consideration, Goo Deok agreed. On the wedding day, Jeon Hee was also present. Because he once wholeheartedly loved her, he came here to wish her happiness. However, when he saw the groom who looked exactly like him, he couldn't help but be astonished, thinking to himself that Goo Deok hasn't forgotten about him. You should find someone like him to love you. The servants don't know anything. Tell the master not to be a XIN anymore. After the wedding, father will prepare a separate office for Goo Deok, so she can continue to help the poor. That is her wish, and also Goo Deok and Miss Tae Young's dream. That night, Sung Yoon confessed to Goo Deok that he didn't just want to hide his identity. He had formed a secret society to protect those in the same situation as him. They were trained in martial arts for self-defense, and hidden in a safe place. Sung-yoon intended, after rescuing a girl named Moon-soo, he will lead the group to a new location, to avoid detection. Meanwhile, at the royal court, a villain reported to the CAI, the governor of the fragrance department, that is, Lai Trung, that there is a gold mine on Mount Van Phong. He suggested secretly mining this gold mine. Most of the profits go to the court. The remainder will be shared with local powers. Lai Trung immediately sensed the fragrance and gathered to discuss with his wife. However, the lady was resolutely against it because if the matter was exposed, their whole family would end up in prison. He couldn't discuss it with his wife. He went to discuss it with the neighbors. The whole gang is determined not to let go of this tasty bait. Very quickly, they found manpower to start exploiting. They created a trade organization and used tricks to deceive poor families. They took advantage of the parents' ignorance to present forged documents and pressured them to sign papers, which were essentially contracts to sell their children. When the incident was discovered, they used these contracts to turn the tables, not giving the parents a chance to reclaim their child. One day, Goo Deok Yi was passing by the street. She accidentally saw a poor father on his knees, begging the union to return his daughter. Instead of receiving sympathy, he was brutally beaten. Goo Deok Yi immediately came to ask questions, and realized that this was not a simple matter. To uncover the truth about the servant, disguised as a noble and infiltrating the trading group, she discovered a room that was heavily guarded, where young laborers were locked up. Especially, she saw the person from Lai Trung is trading with the merchant group. This raises her suspicions about a larger conspiracy. After gathering enough information, Goo Deok Yi quickly left. On her way back, she unexpectedly saw General Sung-yoon. He is thought to be training, but he entered a place called Ai Tam. She returned home. Goo Deok Yi reported the incident to Cho Cha Kyujin. After that, Kuji received a secret letter. The letter warned that the trading group was watching him. From there, he deduced that the trading group would take advantage of his absence. To move people to the transaction site, Kuji decided to spread false information that he would be on a business trip. At the same time, he deployed troops to ambush on the road. When the transport convoy brought the young workers to the mountains of Van Phong, the soldiers suddenly attacked. However, the convoy's forces were larger, and the situation became unfavorable. At that moment, a masked man appeared and helped the soldiers overpower the enemy. During the fight, this person's mask fell off. Goo Deok Yi was astonished to realize it was Sung-yoon. Then, the caravan fled, taking some children with them. Meanwhile, Sung-yoon rescued Moo-soo, the little girl he had been searching for, and left. With growing suspicion, Goo Deok Yi decided to go to Adamgak to investigate. There, she was led into a vast secret chamber, where many children were training. Young Yoon reveals that the tattoo on his shoulder is a symbol of the Ai Tom Society, a haven for those ostracized by society. Because they are different from others, he shares that he wants to build a world where everyone is accepted, similar to Goo Deok Yi's dream of equality. While the two are talking, the member of the society was discovered by a wealthy young master. The young man's name is Harung. Because they found out he was disguising himself as a woman, the young master became furious. He demanded that he be taken to the brothel to be executed. Goo Deok appeared just in time to stop this act, and demanded that the person be handed over to the authorities. Sung-yoon knew that Hugang's identity had been exposed, and according to the law, he would face the death penalty. Sung-yoon recounted that Hugang was the first person he saved, and the inspiration for founding the charitable organization. Despite the danger, Sung-yoon was determined to save him. Goo Deok advised him to be cautious, simultaneously vowing that she would find a way to protect Hugang. The next day, Cha Sung-yoon opened the trial to handle the case. Lee's people gathered in large numbers, demanding the execution of the arrested person, under the pretext of protecting traditional values under pressure. Father Sung-yoon had no choice but to comply. Mr. Kyujin, though well-meaning, could not withstand the pressure from the factions. Nor could he accept the existence of homosexuals. He declared the death sentence for prisoner Heng. When Sung-yoon was about to draw his sword to save someone, Goo Deok suddenly appeared, with a scroll in hand. She loudly declared there was no law stating that homosexuals should be executed. There have been similar cases in history, as the king only ordered them to be sent to a remote place, to live alone. Even the king cannot arbitrarily execute citizens, so why can we do that? Goo Deok's defense left everyone speechless. Thanks to her courage and sound reasoning, she saved a life. Sung-yoon is deeply grateful, but Goo Deok warned him to be careful. If the association is discovered, they will be regarded as rebels and face the death penalty. After the incident, Goo Deok coincidentally met the girl Bang Soon. This is the girl who was injured during the raid but fortunately escaped. Bang soon revealed that many other children were also injured. The caravan had been taken to Mount Yunfeng. At the same time, a wicked overlord named Cha Chun overheard two children talking about Bang Soon, and uttered a lament, regretting his inability to escape with her. This man immediately used the children to gain more information. Upon learning the Adam Association is gathering to practice martial arts, Lee Trung has exploited this information to divert the attention of the authorities. He reported that the Adam Association is a gathering place for rebels. The authorities quickly surrounded the Adam Association to protect Sung-yoon. That guy Heng has been captured by Cha Chun Ra. This villain discovered a tattoo of the character heart on that person's shoulder. he ordered, to hunt down all AIs bearing this mark. Sung Yeon was fortunate to escape and return home. Goo Deok, help me pack up to leave this town. However, the father suddenly burst in and demanded that Sung Yeon take off his shirt for inspection. Under pressure, Sung Yeon did not hide. He admitted that he is gay and voluntarily revealed the tattoo on his shoulder. The angry father declared that he was cutting off all ties with him. Over here, the guy John He and the servant are chilling. Then the soldiers arrived. He just said, unbutton your shirt and show me. The servant boy immediately took off his shirt. After examining the patterns, both of them saw Goo Deok running towards them. While the soldiers were pursuing them, Goo Deok helped Sung Yeon hide in a hidden house. But unexpectedly, inside was John He, protecting Sung Yeon. The guy pretended to be Sung Yeon and passed the guard check. The soldier then left without any further suspicion. John He urged Goo Deok to get him out of there. Don't let your kindness go to waste. In the end, Goo Deok safely saw Sung Yeon off onto the departing boat. However, Lee Young and Inspector Kwang refused to give up. They presented the royal edict, dismissing Father Sung Yeon and confiscating all assets to be handed over to assistant Lee Trung. Father Sung Yeon was shocked by the news and collapsed. He passed away to the regret of everyone. As for Goo Deok Yi, she was determined not to give up hope. She swore to continue investigating the truth about Van Phong Mountain and to rescue the kidnapped children. She learned of the allegations from Lee Trung. Judge Park soon had ordered an investigation into the case. However, the situation still remains unclear, and she didn't know what to do. At this moment, unexpectedly, she heard that the nobles were planning to sell Mrs. Mart. She was the one who had helped Goo Deok before. To save Mrs. Mart, Goo Deok didn't hesitate to kneel down and beg Lee Young to release her. With his cruel nature, he showed no mercy. Goo Deok knelt all night in front of Lee's house, with the hope of saving Smart. In the end, thanks to the compassion of Lady Kim, she agreed to let Ryamath return to Goo Deok. Goo Deok was extremely grateful. She promised to repay the lady in the future. After this incident, Lady Kim began to have doubts. Some of her husband's relationships with Lee Trung and his in-laws, namely the Cha Sun family, made her suspicious that they were hiding something. So, she secretly entered her husband's study to look for clues. Finally, she discovered he was secretly mining gold. Previously, Lee Trung discussed this matter with her, but she refused. She didn't expect that her husband would continue doing this without telling her. Upon discovering the truth, she demanded he stop mining the gold, because if discovered, it would be a capital offense. However, this man has insatiable greed. He won't listen to anyone. Now that Sung Yeon's father is dead, no one can stop him. At this moment, Lady Kim realizes that it was her husband who falsely accused Sung Yeon's father, causing his wrongful death. But she, despite knowing this, nothing can change. In the end, Mrs. Kim left a will and left, because she didn't want her son-in-law to have to search. However, the in-laws played a petty game. Once they became enemies, they spread malicious rumors. They accused Mrs. Kim of eloping with a man. At this moment, the servants took advantage of the chaos to provide the emperor with the map to the gold mine and important information. At the same time, the servant learned from friends that it was Lee Trung who had falsely accused Sung-eun because he had obstructed him for their gold mining plan. Everything has become clear. Goo Deok believes that all of Lee Trung's secrets lie in Van Phong Mountain. Therefore, to find the evidence, Goo Deok decides to go to Van Phong Mountain for further investigation. Before setting off, John He sought out Goo Deok because John He heard rumors that Sung-eun might be related to homosexuality, and remembered that Sung-eun also showed similar signs. So he asked Goo Deok if Sung-eun was different or not. Goo Deok then revealed his secrets, and Sung-eun told John He. The guy, upon hearing this, became angry and said, "Why did you reveal your identity as a servant to him?" Then she went on to mention his name. Doesn't he know how to take care of his wife? In her final statement, she said she shouldn't wait for him. However, Goo Suk knew Sung-eun's feelings, so she decided to stay and support him. She also decided to go up the mountain to find evidence. What? Going up the mountain to look for evidence? And so, the two of them cooperated and went up the mountain together. On the way, John He suddenly recalled old memories of the two of them. When she first met Goo Deok, it was also when Goo Deok was in his 5th year uniform. The two shared these memories, and Goo Deok joked that now she's the wife of a man. So don't drag me into romantic matters anymore. However, not long after, on the way up the mountain, they were about to be caught, so they had to stop for a moment. John He started telling Goo Deok stories about previous trips, but Goo Deok couldn't stop thinking about the challenges ahead. And in the evening, they rested in a grass hut halfway up the mountain. Goo Deok encouraged John He to go back, because besides telling jokes, he had no martial arts skills at all. But John He was determined to stay, refusing to leave Goo Deok. After a night of conversation, both imagined everything far from Hoa with a big house, delicious food and all sorts, but in reality, it was just a dull, abandoned house. The next day, they continued their journey, while both stopped to have lunch. They didn't know they had been spotted by those from the mountain. On this side, the observer recalled what Goo Deok Yi had said earlier regarding the investigation of Mount Van Phong. He decided to investigate and went to Lee Trung's house to investigate the secret. After infiltrating Lee Trung's house, he discovered that Lai Trung's house was located directly opposite Mount Van Phong. Meanwhile, Lai Trung had reported to Tax Chief Park Jun about the appearance of the inspector. In the conversation, he heard the inspector mention Mount Van Phong. Tax Chief Park Jun feared the truth would be revealed, so he ordered his men to withdraw from the mountain. Immediately, the henchmen locked the children up and left them to fend for themselves. The purpose is to destroy the evidence. While Goo Deok and John Hee were resting, the henchmen quickly surrounded their area. But when they arrived, they only found grass. There were no people around. At this point, Goo Deok had already left, and she looked down at the ground. She noticed that the type of grass growing on the ground had the ability to store gold. This helps assess the potential for gold mining. She immediately asked John Hee about Park Jun's responsibilities, and John Hee explained that he was in charge of investigating local specialties, and the Goo Deok gold mine suddenly realized that Park Jun had discovered the gold mine on Mount Unbang. So they collaborated with Lai Trung to take the kids up there to exploit. Goo Deok suggested immediately to find where they hid the gold and the kids, but just as he finished speaking, the henchmen surrounded them. John Hee pulled Goo Deok to escape, but both were forced to the cliff. There was only one way left, to jump. When he saw Tae Young shoot the arrow, John Hee grabbed Goo Deok's and jumped into the water. Both of them fell into the river. Goo Deok's couldn't swim, so when she fell into the water, John Hee had to rescue her and perform CPR. Goo Deok's woke up, but fearing Tae Young's pursuit, immediately ran into the forest with John Hee. However, Goo Deok still could not recover from the high fever and fainted. She only managed to tell John Hee that he should run down the mountain alone and tell everything to the inspector. After saying that, Goo Deok fainted again. John Hee did not want to abandon her. He vowed to. Nothing should separate the two except death. Just as the henchmen with torches were chasing, John Hee pulled out a knife, ready to dance and tell jokes. The scene then shifts to Goo Deok waking up. She finds herself in a cave and realizes she is in there with her former servant, Do Suk. He is the one she had previously spared. The young man thanked him and explained the situation to Goo Deok. It turned out that runaway slaves from their masters were also living in this cave. Recently, they learned that government soldiers were nearby, so when they discovered someone had fallen into the water, they went to check. John Hee at that time mistook them for enemies, so he drew his knife, ready to fight. But upon seeing that Goo Deok was unconscious, Suk explained everything and took them both into the cave for shelter. Goo Deok didn't expect that his past good deed would save her life in this situation. Afterwards, Goo Deok went out to look for John Hee. I saw him telling jokes to everyone. Even the AI had to laugh. That scene moved Goo Deok deeply. She never expected that those casual words from the past could make John Hee feel closer and more connected to her. After that, Goo Deok and Do Suk's group went to the mountain, searching for the kidnapped children, determined to rescue them from the hands of the traffickers. Upon reaching the summit, they found a gold mine in operation, and the children were imprisoned, just rescued. The henchmen ambushed and charged out, surrounding Goo Deok's group. To escape the encirclement, John Hee Lao stepped forward. Both sides fought fiercely, but the strength was too disparate. Goo Deok and his comrades were severely wounded. As a henchman prepared to attack Goo Deok, an arrow struck their henchman. Reinforcements arrived from the county. They managed to promptly control the henchmen. It turns out the army came under the direction of the inspector to rescue Goo Deok. Fortunately, they arrived in time. John Hee checked Goo Deok's wounds. He saw she was injured on her neck and quickly bandaged her. After the henchmen were captured and taken to the district, Goo Deok's group safely returned from the mountain. When they reached the foot of the mountain, Goo Deok learned that the young man, Heng, had woken up. However, they didn't want to get involved in the dispute, and just wanted to live a peaceful life in seclusion. One day, Goo Deok accidentally discovered that Madam Kim intended to jump off the cliff and commit suicide. She hurried to save the lady and brought her to meet the innocent children who were rescued. Goo Deok advised the lady that if she wanted to atone, she should do good things for these children. Meanwhile, Lai Trung and his in-law heard about the captured henchmen and began to worry. Lady Kim, along with her son, I went to persuade him to surrender. However, Lee Young was adamant about not admitting guilt. He then sought help from Inspector Park. However, the inspector pushed all the blame onto him. Lee Young believed that he was not involved in gold mining or child trafficking. At this point, there was no option left for Chung to hope for a lighter sentence, so he had to surrender. The new judge came to the district to handle the case, and the prosecutor requested a review of the case of the conspiracy to rebel that Lee Trung was accused of, to clear her father's name. Heng also came to testify. He admitted that is a member of the sexual minority group who has been rejected by society and had to disguise as a woman and establish an independent organization to protect others like him. But their actions have been falsely labeled by evildoers as rebellion, and even they have been hunted down to silence them. When Lee Trung was investigated for illegal gold mining, he did not expect that Goo Deok would stand up to defend him. Goo Deok argued that according to the law, if one confesses, they will be exempt from punishment. Goo Deok protected him. And in the end, Lee Trung was released due to lack of evidence. After the case, he sought Goo Deok to ask why she helped him. Goo Deok explained that it was Madam Kim who saved her. so she was repaying that kindness. She also said, under the law, all people are equal, including enemies. Lee Trung felt ashamed to hear this, and knelt down to apologize, and declared he would return the property and slaves to Gusuk, to atone for his actions. Afterwards, Goo Deok's younger brother brought his father's portrait home. He thanked Goo Deok for his help. Goo Deok saw the happy servants in the house, and couldn't help but feel happy for having helped them. Goo Deok's younger brother thanked his sister-in-law. I promise to try my best to pass the exam and repay your kindness. When everything is settled, Goo Deok seeks out Jeonhee. She thanks him for helping her. During this entire time, Goo Deok tells Jeonhee that Hagang's subordinates have been searching for her husband, and they believe that her husband will return soon. Jeonhee gave Goo Deok the jade hairpin as a gift. However, he could only stand by and not disturb Goo Deok's decision. When she chose to stay and continue living with Naeun, Jeonhee also revealed that Goo Deok was his first love. Initially, the two loved each other, but because of their different social statuses, they were forced to part ways. After that, each person had their own mission, walking on different paths in life, and constantly encountering mistakes. Jeonhee had been crying for a long time. Perhaps this is the most perfect ending to this love story. It has already been 7 years. Goo Deok continues his work as a member in the party committee. One day, the sound of drums echoed on the street. Goo Deok's younger brother returned after passing the national exam. Sungdu joyfully hugged Goo Deok and spun around, finally fulfilling the promise. She did not let her hopes down. All the girls in the district gathered in front of Goo Deok's house to introduce a match for her younger brother. Goo Deok felt very happy to see her brother doing so well. She thought that after her brother married a suitable bride, she would fulfill their late father's wish. One sunny day, I met a girl named Muriel. During a chance encounter, Muriel's jewelry fell off. I chased after her to return it, but she quickly ran away. The next day, Muriel asked Goo Deok for help because her neighbor was unfairly dismissed and hadn't received their salary. Goo Deok decides to investigate the matter. She discovers that Muriel not only saves people with infectious diseases, but also cares for them with great dedication. From that, Goo Deok becomes even more impressed by this kind girl. Muriel also expresses her admiration for Goo Deok and wishes to learn from the work of the committee. The girl hopes to help many people like Goo Deok. Of course, Goo Deok happily agreed. When he learned that Muriel and his younger brother had met, Goo Deok thought they were very well suited and decided to set them up. One night, Goo Deok took his younger brother to Muriel's house, wanting Sungdu to see her devotion and the kindness of that girl. However, they accidentally witnessing Muriel helping a woman being abused by her husband. When the husband wanted to attack Muriel, the brave guy Sungdu stepped in to help. Goo Deok saw his brother and Muriel standing together and felt very satisfied. Little did he know that when Muriel returned home, she had completely changed. She started giving money to those with infectious diseases and asked them to keep it a secret. The next day, Goo Deok realized she was being followed, and when she subdued the person, she discovered it was Jeonhee's servant. Tae Young immediately asked Goo Deok for help. It turned out Jeonhee had been arrested and imprisoned. Later, she accidentally trespassed into someone else's theater. The guy wants Goo Deok to defend Jeonhee and save the master RA from prison. Goo Deok hesitated, but Tae Young hurriedly said that Jeonhee is married and has a lovely child. There's no need to worry about him having a family. Hearing this, Goo Deok decided to arrange things at home and then follow Tae Young. As they were preparing to board the train, Goo Deok saw a figure resembling Jeonhee. She knew Jeonhee was in prison, so the person before her must be the prince. Goo Deok called out Sungyeon's name and hurried towards him. But Sungyeon, seeing this, quickly got on the boat and left. It seemed he was trying to avoid her. Goo Deok watched the boat drift away. Goo Deok couldn't hold back her tears. Then, Goo Deok followed the servant to the house. Lao finally met Jeonhee, who was being held captive. Jeonhee saw Goo Deok. The woman he longed for day and night appeared before him. He could hardly believe his eyes. He quickly grabbed the bars and asked if Goo Deok was living well. Goo Deok suppressed all her emotions. She wants Jeonhee to explain everything clearly, so she can rescue him quickly. And then, he can return to be reunited with his wife and children. At this, Jeonhee shakes his head, utterly confused. He's never been married, so how could he have a wife and children? Tae Young realizes the truth is out. He has to confess everything. He's afraid that Goo Deok won't help because of his identity, so they made up a story that Jeonhee got married. Tae Young even told Goo Deok about Jeonhee's injustice. Jeonhee took on a disciple, so that the disciple could be independent. He poured all his efforts into teaching. Who would have thought that the person would have such a wicked heart and stole Jeonhee's book? The book is called The Investigator and the Young Girl, a tragic romance prototype of Jeonhee and Goldnook. Jeonhee wrote it to reminisce about the feelings between him and Goldnook. Who would have thought that the disciple not only stole the book but also turned the romantic details in the book into dirty stories, completely distorting the book. Jeonhee angrily beat him up. That's why he was imprisoned. He never intended to publish that book. He wrote it only to remember the memories between them, and that first love, a memory belonging only to the two of them. After hearing that, Goo Deok was also angry. If it were me, I would have sent him to his grave. After that, Goo Deok used the identity of someone from the external ministry to meet with the county magistrate. She made it clear that Jeon-hee is the eldest son of Lord Tong. If Lord Tong knew that his son was imprisoned, the county magistrate would definitely be in big trouble. The county magistrate was originally not concerned about a storyteller like Jeon-hee, but when he learned the true identity of him, he no longer dared to be careless, and followed Goo Deok's advice to proceed with a public trial of the case. Goo Deok presented 2 books, saying one was the original, and the other was a copy. The disciple's name, in a moment of panic accidentally revealed the original, was burned by him. Goo Deok successfully lured him to reveal the truth. After that, she asked both of them to rewrite the content in the book right on the spot. Jeon-hee wrote very quickly and fluently, while the imposter couldn't write a single word. He was so angry that he overturned the table. At this point, AI is the author. AI is clearly the plagiarist. The county magistrate declared Jeon-hee innocent, and his disciple was punished with 30 strokes of the roy. Everything was resolved peacefully. It was time for Golden Ox to return home. However, Jeon-hee was very reluctant. He winked at a servant, asking him to find a way to keep Goo Deok. Seo Rong lied, saying the boat was broken and couldn't depart. He persuaded Goo Deok to stay a few more days. Goo Deok heard that and agreed. Goo Deok told Jeon-hee that his freedom was also thanks to his father's help. Before leaving, she wrote a letter to Lord Song. She didn't expect Lord Song to come in person. From the beginning until now, his relationship with his father has not been good. She advised Jeon-hee to meet his father once. Tae Young also mentioned that since the lady passed away, Master Tong's health has significantly declined. The father and son should resolve their misunderstandings. However, Jeon-hee is still resentful about being kicked out of the house, and is determined not to meet Father Goo Deok, staying behind. Jeon-hee's troop watches. As Jeon-hee practices her dance, unable to take her eyes off, she hastily hid it when Jeon-hee arrived. She clearly stated her intention, wanting to ask a servant to take her to buy some gifts for her family. Jeon-hee volunteered. He was very familiar with the place. The two went to buy face veils first. Jeon-hee personally put one on Goo Deok and asked if it fit. Goo Deok didn't want to be close to Jeon-hee, talked to him politely. Hope Jeon-hee treats her the same way as before. Treat the 2 days here as real. Let the genuine Goo Deok from the past come back to life. Jeon-hee agrees to treat everything as a short dream. The two stroll through the streets. Jeon-hee recounts a long time ago. He gave Goo Deok a name. The worm Cho means the bird flies. I hope Goo Deok can fly like a bird, unbound, forever free to soar. Goo Deok asks why they have been apart for 7 years. Why are you still single until now? His heart is stirred. Jeon-hee says he only needs Goo Deok to be enough. Then the two set aside their worries and play joyfully, choosing to buy their favorite items. Moments together. Jeon-hee's gaze always follows Tae Young. He wants to engrave her image into his heart, never to forget. On the way back, Goo Deok tells Jeon-hee to go ahead. She has something to do. She has gone to find Lord Song. I advise you to watch Jeon-hee's performance to resolve the conflict between father and son. That evening, Jeon-hee gave his all on stage. Goo Deok stood in the crowd, while Mr. Song was upstairs. He also recognized Jeon-hee's love for his performance and accepted his son's choice. The performance ended. The theater troupe staff announced good news. They were invited to perform as cultural ambassadors in the Great Qing. Everyone applauded and cheered. Goo Deok joyfully jumped around. Everyone drank to celebrate. Jeon-hee, however, didn't drink, watching everyone else. He smiled, watching Goo Deok and Tae Young compete in drinking. A servant advised Goo Deok to stay. Even so, her husband hasn't appeared for 7 years. Jeon-hee intended to ask for clarification, but Tae Young said it was just a supposition, because Goo Deok had told him not to tell Jeon-hee about this. At this time, Mr. Song came to find Jeon-hee, saying it was Goo Deok who invited him to watch the performance. Now, he was ready to accept everything from Jeon-hee, hoping Jeon-hee would come home. Jeon-hee was happy to hear his father's affirmation. The conflict between father and son was finally resolved. Jeon-hee thanked Goo Deok for everything she had done for him. Goo Deok said she wanted to see Jeon-hee happy. Jeon-hee explained he wished it were as the servant said. Sung-yeon won't return like this. You can hold Goo Deok close. I'd give up everything to be with Goo Deok. Goo Deok said, I will continue living as Sung-yeon's wife. And I hope you become the greatest storyteller. Jeon-hee rested his head on Goo Deok's lap and took her hand. He pleaded, let us have some quiet time together. This is their last chance to be close. After this dream, everything will be lost. When Jeon-hee wakes up, Goo Deok has left. For him, this is a dream that will never repeat. Awakening from the dream, he is alone again. He will hold on to the memories of their days together, spending the rest of his life reminiscing about Goo Deok. Goo Deok returns to where she belongs. She choked up while holding Maxim. She held back her tears, and the sorrow forced herself back to reality. During the time Goo Deok left, Miriam's true identity was finally revealed. She is the daughter of Madam Bitch, out for revenge. Madam Bitch married Miriam to Goo Deok's brother-in-law to spy on everything happening in the Goo Deok household and report back to her. She wants Goo Deok to pay for what was done to their family. To win over her brother-in-law, Miriam set up 2 acts. One was to resolve a dispute with the neighbors, so her brother-in-law would see that she also has a kind heart, like Goo Deok. 2 was timely in pushing her brother-in-law away when the truck was about to crash into him. He injured himself to protect him. Sung indeed has fallen in love. The feelings between the two have deepened. Goo Deok returned to hear the news. He immediately organized a wedding for the two. On the wedding day, Goo Deok gave Yeon a bracelet. To ensure Yeon feels safe relying on you, you will take care of Yeon like your own sister. After the wedding, the younger brother Sung-do asked Goo Deok, years ago, why did the older brother leave home? Goo Deok still wants to keep the secret from Sung-yoon, but the sister-in-law has guessed the truth. The older brother is the special one. He is angry because the older brother hasn't returned for many years, which binds Goo Deok by an identity. Yeon is hiding outside, eavesdropping on the conversation. Tae Young discovers a shadow outside the door, but before getting a clear look, it's AI in another place. The wives of the clan leaders are gathering. The wife of the Tan clan leader tells a story. In the neighboring district, there is a widow named Tuet-han. The entire district benefits. Not only are they exempt from taxes, but most importantly, the students in the district who take the exam will receive extra points. Madam Hong envies the widow from the neighboring village, because her son not only failed to achieve the highest honors, but even passing is difficult. So she hopes very much that her area will also have a virtuous widow to give the son extra points in the exam. That night, Madam Bitch came to see Madam Hong. She said that both her husband and son had died. If Madam could help her take revenge, she would help obtain the golden plaque of virtue. The next day, Goo Deok and her brother-in-law received news that Sung Yeon had passed away. The body was at the district office waiting for someone to claim it. Goo Deok couldn't believe the sudden bad news. She recalled the memories from when she met Sung-eun. She hoped that the body under the sheet was not her husband. She trembled as she lifted the sheet to see the deceased clearly, but the body had completely decomposed, making the face unrecognizable. She ordered someone to turn the body over and check the back. She saw there was no tattoo on the shoulder. She immediately confirmed that this was not Sung-eun. She reported to the magistrate that Sung-yeon had a scar on her back that wouldn't disappear unless treated surgically. At that time, Sung-do also discovered the body, and it didn't resemble his brother's build. His hands also lacked the calluses of a martial artist. Goo Deok didn't accept this. He based his judgment only on the body and a handkerchief. There is a name printed on the gunyun, which confirms that this is her husband. The two returned home after identifying the body. Mark Xan told Goo Deok about the rumors that were spreading. It turned out that Yeon, following Madam Bitch's orders, had placed a voodoo doll in her honeymoon room. Madam Hong has colluded with outsiders. Lone believes the rumors were started by Goo Deok's. Goo Deok was jealous and didn't want her sister-in-law to have a child. She even said Goo Deok was having an affair with her brother-in-law. Goo Deok suspects that AI is the one spreading the rumors. Maxim reported yesterday that he saw a shadow lurking outside the study. Yeon heard this and was afraid of being discovered. Immediately said at the crowded wedding, perhaps just a passerby. The officer took the opportunity to remind Sung-do during the meeting that the actions of Goo Deok harm the reputation of County Chol-su. A widow should not carelessly leave the house. Sung-do argued that Goo Deok is not a widow. That body is not your brother. But everyone says, Sung-yeon hasn't returned for 7 years. It's no different than being dead, unless you have a reason you don't want to share. If not, how could you just stand by and watch your wife be regarded as a widow? Goo Deok shows the mannequin to Lady Kim. The matriarch sees the seriousness of the situation. It's not just spreading rumors. She told Goo Deok important information. She saw Mrs. Bitch at her sister-in-law and Yeon's wedding. Mrs. Bitch has harbored resentment towards Goo Deok. Perhaps the things Goo Deok is facing are related to her. Sung-do wants to resolve the current situation, so they rallied to set out to find her brother and bring him back. Everyone was determined to shed the title of widow that people had imposed on Goo Deok. At this point, Goo Deok recounted seeing Sung-yeon at the docks. Yeon saw her but didn't recognize her. She turned and walked away. It was clearly intentional. Perhaps even if we find him, it will be useless. Sung-do is unwilling to accept it. No matter what, we have to bring my brother back. Goo Deok has worked hard for this family for many years. It's not fair. He shouldn't have to endure slander and malicious rumors. The next day, the whole family sees Sung-do off. Madam Hong hears the news. Immediately report to Mrs. Big. She has been spreading rumors, pushing the widow into a difficult situation. Mrs. Bitch is very pleased that there are no men in the house. They can act more easily. Sung followed the portrait of his brother, searching everywhere. Days passed with no results. Just when he was exhausted and worn out, a follower rushed to a person and shouted, "The young master." The person mistaken for Sung-yeon is actually John-hee. Sung, seeing John-hee's reaction, realized that this person was not his brother. He had met John-hee once when he was young. He stepped forward to explain John-hee's identity. Through Tai Tung's complaints, I only just learned that Sung-yeon hasn't returned home in 7 years, and Goo Deok is now considered a widow, in a very difficult situation. Tae Young told Sung-do that his brother-in-law had sailed to the Qing dynasty. After his sister-in-law left, John-hee pressed Tae Young, asking if she was hiding anything. He recounted the story of seeing Sung-yeon at the dock, but she had left in front of Goo Deok. Tae Young had never seen Goo Deok cry like this before. John-hee felt it was unfair for Goo Deok. He believed that Goo Deok didn't deserve to shed a single tear because of that heartless and unfeeling man. However, the servant understands Goo Deok's feelings. Goo Deok saved Sung-yeon's broken family, single-handedly raising her brother-in-law to adulthood. Now she's treated like a widow. She fulfilled her duties as a daughter-in-law, but Sung-yoon ignores her. It's only natural that Goo Deok is heartbroken. Even in his deepest despair, he chose to save him. He felt a pang of guilt. He wanted to immediately go find Goo Deok, but Seo Rong stopped him. He is now the eldest son of the Song family, and Goo Deok is a married woman. If he interferes in Goo Deok's affairs again, it would be inappropriate. She won't go with you either. That will only make it harder for you to let go. John, he knows the servant is right, but thinking about Goo Deok's suffering. He can't just sit calmly and watch her become a widow. Elsewhere, Goo Deok reviews old files, casually showing them to Myung. The horrifying discovery was that it was the case of the big family, but the truth written in the files was completely different from what her mother had said. She asked in astonishment what the big family was really about. Maxon recounted the entire story of the victimized girl to her, with deep regret. The one who killed Baggy was Mrs. Beck. However, the son, Do Young, willingly accepted the blame for his parents, which led to his exile. She feels regret, but also helpless. Myung took the file to confront her mother. The file clearly states the truth of the case. Why did you deceive me, turning Goo Deok into an enemy? At this point, Madam Bitch still refuses to admit it. Boys like baggy clothes. She believes the baggy clothes have seduced her son and his family. It's gotten this far because of that wicked taste. Myung discovered for the first time that her mother was consumed by hatred, blinded by it, unable to distinguish right from wrong, only wanting to harm others. She doesn't want to help the wicked, but her mother threatened that everything before was planned by her. Now it's too late to back out. Madam Bitch saw Myung was scared and immediately spoke of the next plan. She wanted to kidnap Goo Deok, humiliate Goo Deok, and then throw her out. As long as Goo Deok dies, her home and the wealth all belongs to Myung. They must complete the mission before Sung-do returns. The night of action. Madam Bitch is worried, waiting for Goo Deok to be brought before her, but she didn't expect the person who entered was Goo Deok, completely unharmed. Myung couldn't bear it. Her conscience was pricked, so she took the initiative to confess her mistake to Goo Deok. Who would have thought Goo Deok would say outright that she knew Myung was the daughter of the big family? It turns out earlier, the matriarch said she had seen Madam Bitch at the wedding. After that, Goo Deok investigated her background. Of course, he also learned about Myung's identity. He told Myung to atone for her sins, to continue acting according to her mother's orders. When Myung led her henchmen to capture Goo Deok had already arranged for the guards to ambush. One by one, Goo Deok faced them alone. He went to meet Madam Bitch. She angrily scolded her for not accepting the truth all these years. The death of her son Dawang was caused by her own actions. Out of respect for Myung, she warned Madam Bitch one last time. Spare her life this time. If she causes trouble again in the future, she will definitely not spare Goo Deok when he returns home to meet Myung. At this moment, the girl wants to leave. Myung knows it herself. The sins she committed are too heavy. She doesn't have the right to stay here. When she was young, her family was very well off. Suddenly, she was sent to live in the home of poor relatives. Her mother said it was all because of the evil spirits. She considers revenge her life's goal. But during her time living here, everyone treated her sincerely. Myung has wavered many times. Now she understands she has taken revenge on the wrong person. She resented the wrong person. She only feels an emptiness inside. Goo Deok holds her hand, inviting her to stay. From now on, Goo Deok will be like a mother to her, like a sister. Give her the love she's never felt before. This place will always be her home. The family problems have been resolved, but Sungju's situation isn't optimistic. After being robbed and beaten and wandering everywhere, he finally found his brother's whereabouts. A relative separated for 7 years, right before his eyes. He couldn't hide his excitement, hastily calling his older brother. Young-yoon heard the call, indifferently lifting his head. He saw his younger brother, but on his face, there wasn't a trace of excitement. His body remained calm from head to toe. Elsewhere, his former henchman, responsible for illegal gold mining, found the box. Judge Park Jun. They reported to the county magistrate. Ton Tui sent him to kidnap a widow. But he discovered that the widow was Goo Deok Yi, the one who harmed the chief and lost gold, blinded one of the chief's eyes for revenge. Goo Deok Yi immediately pressured Magistrate Chin Soo. Very quickly afterward, the magistrate led people to destroy Goo Deok's workplace. He ordered, after the magistrate and the supervisor confirmed 7 bodies, that it was Sung-yoon. He demanded that Goo Deok not leave the house or participate in outside affairs. She is forced to immediately find her husband's body and strictly observe the 3-year mourning period. The magistrate burned all the documents and laws. He ordered the arrest and imprisonment of Goo Deok at the magistrate's office. If she dares to disobey, Goo Deok is heartbroken. She poured her heart and soul into it for years. And yet, now, she saw Mrs. Bitch appear with a smug expression. After that, Goo Deok was imprisoned by the district chief. The district chief threatened her to accept the corpse and remain a widow for 3 years, or he would fabricate a story that she committed suicide out of grief over her husband's death. Like that was also enough to qualify for a plaque of chastity. Goo Deok knew the magistrate and his wife's cook are in cahoots. He dares to act so defiantly. He must have powerful backing. Goo Deok naturally refused to compromise. Even in death, he would die clean somewhere else. Myung recalled the time Goo Deok was taken away. She saw her mother's figure She intended to find her mother to settle the score, but her mother came to her instead. Young calls her mother into the house to question her. Is she the one behind all this? Madam Bitch is no longer pretending. She not only wants to harm Goo Deok, but also wants to rightfully claim this place in the name of Young's mother. Maxim is outside the door, hearing the conversation between the two. The lady angrily scolded Mrs. Bitch, calling her a beast, but she was slapped twice by her. Young rushed in to intervene, then suddenly felt a stomach ache. She fainted while Young was unconscious. Mrs. Bitch wreaked havoc inside the house. Not only did she mistreat the servants, but she also took the liberty of giving away the snail ring for Mrs. Hong to thank her for colluding with me. Maxim diligently cared for Young. After waking up, Young felt nauseous. Calculating the time, she realized she was pregnant. She told Maxim not to tell anyone about this. Absolutely not. Let her mother know that Goo Deok is suffering in prison. Suffering enough in her dying moments, she remembered Miss Tae Young. Before, the young lady had risked her life to save her. She told her to live well. Struggling to sit up, she discovered a piece of paper beside her. It was a note that many people had stuffed in. It said that Madam Bitch had brazenly entered the house. To survive, she would go out and demand justice. Goo Deok had to pretend to be weak in front of the district magistrate. She promised to accept her husband's body and remain faithful. The district magistrate achieved his goal. He immediately released her. He requested that she and her family wear mourning clothes. They carried the coffin to receive the body. Goo Deok followed, placing the body in the coffin while she knelt and bowed. Just one more bow was needed. You will carry the title of a widow for life without freedom. Goo Deok is unwilling to accept this and refuses to bow. The final bow makes the county magistrate dissatisfied. He sends someone to force her to kneel and bow. Just at that critical moment, a man's voice resonates. The appearance of Naeun completely dispels the rumor that he is dead. The crowd stirs, and Madame Bach, frightened, runs away. Good looked at the person in front of him and turned to look at her. Sung-do took his brother home with their mother. Naeun told everyone. He suffered a severe head injury in a train accident. As a result, he lost his memory, and when he woke up, he was on the coast of Daejeon. He has no identification and doesn't know anyone. To return, he can only work to earn money for travel expenses, until Sung-do finds him. Goo Deok is half believing, half doubting this explanation. But right now she has something more important to do. She goes to look for Mrs. Bitch still in the house. Goo Deok doesn't want Sung-do to know the bad things that Young has done. To avoid affecting their marital feelings, she decided to organize a party at home. After the party, she would invite Mrs. Bitch to leave. Young felt a pang of guilt. She wanted to confess to her husband about what she and her mother had done. Just as she was about to speak, Goo Deok interrupted. The sister told her to let her brother-in-law know that she was pregnant. Sung was overjoyed. She didn't notice Miriam's hesitation to test the identity of Sung-yoon. Goo Deok wants to drink with him. She knows he has a low tolerance for alcohol. Observing the reaction, after drinking, it will be clear if the person in front is AI. Sung-yoon declines, saying there is a party tomorrow. He wants to rest early. After all, he still has guests to entertain tomorrow morning. Goo Deok didn't force her to get up and leave. The next day, Goo Deok invited the magistrate and the other ladies, including Lady Kim, to a banquet. She glanced and saw her ring on Lady Hong's hand. She said nothing. She even overlooked the past and reconciled with the magistrate. During the banquet, Madam Bitch and the magistrate went to a secluded place to talk. Goo Deok immediately followed. This was her purpose in hosting this party, to uncover their conspiracy and the person behind it. The magistrate questioned why Sung-yoon was still alive. Madam Bitch then rebuked the magistrate for not killing Goo Deok while he was in prison. Let the two of them tear each other apart. The magistrate grabbed her by the neck. He said she signed the application for the Golden Virtue plaque because of a bribe. If the plaque isn't approved, he would suffer double the loss. After the argument, the two pretended nothing happened and returned to the banquet. Goo Deok also pretended not to see anything. Sung-yoon stood up and addressed the crowd. He declared he would not forgive anyone who harmed them. Goo Deok sensed the tense atmosphere. He changed his tone. He said to let bygones be bygones at this party. Today marks the beginning of reconciliation. Maxim, standing beside him, exclaimed, "It's been years." The eldest young master's eloquence is impressive. What is said casually is heard intentionally. Goo Deok knows that eloquence is a hallmark of a storyteller. At the end of the party, Goo Deok prepared the room. Madam knows she will sleep together with the eldest young master, so she is incredibly delighted. Using pen and paper to share the experience of the wedding night, the different types of ostriches. She hopes he will also get pregnant and give birth like Young. It's time for a break. Goo Deok drank with Sung-yoon first. He drank several cups in a row but still didn't get drunk. To force the opponent to admit their identity, she pulled Sung-yoon down onto the bed, taking advantage of his distraction to flip him over and pin him down. He took off his shirt to check the tattoo on Goo Deok's shoulder. He was surprised to find a tattoo on Sung-yoon's shoulder. It was just like Sung-yoon's memory loss, so he didn't understand why he had this tattoo. Goo Deok didn't explain. He only left one sentence. "The husband with memory loss is not my real husband." Then he got up and left. Besides, the magistrate's supervisor discovered that the magistrate had met with the one-eyed man, the man connected to the gold case. She told the inspector. My lord heard what the magistrate said to Madam Bitch. and the magistrate's secret meeting with a suspected person. The person behind the magistrate. This is related to the gold case. 7 years ago, the Inspector General advocated for Goo Deok to seek justice from the magistrate. Goo Deok didn't want to stir up trouble. To avoid exposing the Inspector General's actions, believing that justice will prevail eventually, Naeun and her brother together helped to restore the family home. The External Treatment Department advises Naeun to go home with Rio because she is pregnant. The couple talks intimately. Suddenly, Rio smells something strange. She feels nauseous. Naeun takes out a bottle of alcohol. She said there was a pill in the wine given by her mother-in-law. I heard it's a miracle drug beneficial for men. She also instructed him to drink it with his brother. Young suspected her mother was up to something. She told her husband to bring the wine to her. She would prepare a feast for the two brothers. After her husband left, Young took the wine bottle to the kitchen. She dipped a silver spoon into the wine. She only saw the spoon instantly turn black. Realizing her mother's malicious intentions, she was terrified. At that moment, Goo Deok accidentally heard Naeun singing a line. She also heard Maxim say that Naeun seemed taller than before. Her old clothes and hat no longer fit. Realizing something was off, Goo Deok arranged to meet Naeun at the shrine, the place where she and He broke up many years ago. She honestly said she had broken up with the person she loved. Here, the man she loved. When she comes into contact with chalk dust, she sneezes. After saying that, Goo Deok blew away the chalk dust in her hand. He covered his nose, trying to suppress his sneeze. At this moment, He was exposed. Goo Deok asked, "Since when did you recognize me?" Goo Deok met He's gaze. He felt betrayed. Only He ever looked at her with such loving eyes. He chuckled wryly. Sure enough, only love, and a sneeze can't be hidden. Goo Deok angrily hit him, telling him not to take such risks. Once my identity is revealed, I'll be doomed forever. He explained that he even deceived his sister-in-law. He got a tattoo before drinking, and intentionally took medicine to avoid getting drunk. He always regretted not being able to protect Goo Deok back then, but now he's rigorously trained in martial arts, and possesses great martial skills. I thought these disguises would be foolproof. I didn't expect to be seen through by Goo Deok Yi. When Goo Deok Yi returned home, he found Seo Rong looking for him. He said, He, because of you, I declared to the outside world that I was dead, on the way to Daiting. He is willing to sacrifice everything to protect you. I hope you see He like a real husband. Good recalls every moment meeting He. Since they first met, every time they met, He was by her side. A myriad of emotions surged. She took steps towards He, the man who saved the woman he loved, who announced to the outside world that he was dead, disguising himself as the woman's husband, with a tattoo similar to that person's, imitating that person's actions and habits, willing to use another's identity to stay by her side forever, protecting the woman. Goo Deok knows He faked his death to save her and gave up his dream of storytelling. Moreover, this act of deceiving the public was orchestrated by He. Sung was just an accomplice. Goo Deok called everyone together to clarify the situation. The younger brother explained. At that time, you went to Daetang to find your brother. It took a lot of effort to find him. He told Naeun. Father has been gone for many years. My sister-in-law is currently in trouble. I plead with you to return, brother. Take on the responsibilities of the eldest son. Who would have thought that Naeun would tell you not to disturb him anymore? If someone else finds out, everything you have prepared will go to waste. The younger brother asks what Naeun is preparing. He refused to speak and threw the paper down on the ground, telling his brother-in-law to consider him dead. His brother-in-law was about to return when he met He again. Knowing that Naeun wouldn't come back, He was worried about Golden Ox's situation. He wanted to postpone the performance, but attending the grand performance was crucial. It couldn't be delayed. In an urgent situation, he instructed the servant to deliver his letter to father, lying that he had an accident at sea and could not find the body. From now on, He would completely disappear from the world. He would use the name of a husband to protect Goo Deok Yi. He knew Naeun had a tattoo on her shoulder. To avoid any slip-ups, he gritted his teeth and endured the pain of getting the exact same tattoo. He thought with his sister-in-law's help, he could fool everyone. Unexpectedly, Goo Deok Yi still exposed the truth. From the bottom of her heart, the girl appreciated He's sacrifice. But no matter what, deception isn't a long-term solution. She decided to wait for everything to end. She would leave Jeonsu County with He, to avoid her false identity being exposed and implicating her family. Goo Deok blamed He again. His father received news that his son was dead. The scene of the elderly father seeing off his young son would be heartbreaking. He hoped she wouldn't always think of others. For Goo Deok, his family and precious dreams were all here. Vowed to protect everything that Goo Deok cherishes. As long as he can be by her side, he is willing to give up everything. The argument between the two had no resolution when a major incident occurred at home. Sung was searching everywhere but couldn't find Young. While everyone was worried, the maid panicked and reported that Young had killed her mother and was taken to the county office. Everyone was confused about what happened. But after this incident, the relationship between Young and her mother could no longer be hidden. Goo Deok told her brother-in-law the whole story of the feud between Madam Bitch and the family, just like Young was encouraged by her mother to approach them for revenge, but she regretted it. She comforted her sister-in-law not to worry. When the sun rises, she will go to the county to find out. Sung, due to being devastated, could not accept the fact that Myeong deliberately approached him, or simply did not love him. The following morning, Goo Deok went to the prison to see Myeong, and asked Myeong to recount the entire incident. Myeong recounted the truth. At that time, her mother had given Sung 3 pills and urged him to put them in the alcohol to drink with his brother. After discovering it was poison, she took the alcohol to confront her mother. Ask mother why it is so cruel. Her mother admitted it was due to jealousy of her brother-in-law, the top scholar, marrying and having children, making Goo Deok Yi extremely glorious. She thought if her son were still alive, he would also be a top scholar admired by everyone, and would see her son marrying with great honor. But her son had been killed by Goo Deok Yi. All glory turns to dust. She couldn't accept it and wanted to destroy Sung-ju and Sung-yoon, whom Goo Deok had painstakingly nurtured, causing Goo Deok to live in suffering for the rest of his life. Muriel cried and urged her mother to turn herself in. Her mother agreed to turn herself in and told her to fetch water for herself. When she returned with the water, her mother had passed away. Myeong told Goo Deok. Her mother wanted not only to harm Goo Deok's family, but also to kill others, to find corpses and falsely accuse Yoon of murder. Goo Deok is a widow. She and the magistrate went to the mountain cave, where Sol was living. She didn't just kill everyone in the cave, and even destroyed Yosuk's face, placing the handkerchief, embroidered with Yoon's name on Yosuk, to switch identities. She knows her mother's sin is too heavy to atone for her mother, misunderstood as her mother's murderer. She doesn't even defend herself. Now she just wants to leave like this. Goo Deok comforts Myeong. The past grievances have nothing to do with you. She will definitely find the real culprit to clear your name. The murder warrant has been issued and he has been detained. He begged Goo Deok Yi to defend him and save him. However, Goo Deok Yi exposed the wrongdoings he had committed, forcing him to pay for the innocent lives that were lost. After that, Goo Deok Yi and John He went to Mrs. Bitch's residence to find clues. John He found a ring outside the house. It was the ring that Mrs. Bitch had stolen from her and gave to Mrs. Hong. She immediately took the ring to find Mrs. Hong. At the same time, John He advised his sister-in-law like an older brother. If Myeong didn't have feelings for him, Goo Deok didn't let Myeong marry him. Don't let external matters blind you and overlook her genuine feelings. Sung-do looked at the clothes that Myeong made for the baby in her womb. He felt so confused inside. The next day, the case of Myeong killing her mother was brought to trial. Goo Deok, as a representative of the Foreign Affairs Department, has defended Myeong. Myeong admits to having poisoned her mother, but the true cause of Mrs. Bitch's death was strangulation, and recounts the truth about Mrs. Bitch and the district chief plotting against the Taoist priest and others. The district chief was summoned, but he did not confess. Goo Deok exposes the fact that he overheard his and Mrs. Bitch's plot. At the party at your house, you pressed him to ask if he wrote a guarantee for AI. The district chief, in fear, knelt down and begged. Someone told him that if he just signs the guarantee, he will receive the gold plaque. Next, Goo Deok reports that they have caught the real culprit. The murder of Mrs. Bitch requires the culprit to be brought to court to confront the district chief. The one-eyed man was brought up, but he did not confess. He colluded with the district chief. He also did not admit to killing Mrs. Bitch. Goo Deok invited Lady Hong Ra to testify. Lady Hong recounted that she came to find Mrs. Bitch to return a ring. When she arrived at the door, she saw Myeong going to fetch water. At that time, the one-eyed man attacked and strangled Madam Bitch to death. The one-eyed man also tried to attack Myeong upon her return. Luckily, the soldiers arrived in time and Myeong escaped. Everything was exposed. He wanted to falsely accuse the magistrate of wrongdoing, making him watch the two of them tear each other apart. The inspector immediately ordered the arrest of both. The murder charge was dropped. Myeong was declared innocent, and her sister-in-law came to take her home. The two resolved their misunderstanding. Their hearts were free of resentment. The one-eyed man was imprisoned. He had threatened the magistrate. If he dared reveal the mastermind, then his whole family will face disaster. After that, the inspector decided to report to the king about the misuse of the gold tablet and chastity to kill people. In the future, it will be strictly reviewed to prevent more widows from encountering misfortunes. Goo Deok suggested releasing the one-eyed man and then sending someone to monitor him to find R.A., the mastermind hiding behind. While talking, someone came to report that the district magistrate had died in prison. The supervising officer, according to the plan, released the one-eyed R.A. That person was just released. He still wanted to act recklessly in front of Goo Deok, but he was subdued by Chon Hai. Goo Deok has sought justice for the innocent. The village chief declared he was dead. The court awarded the merits of Lao to Goo Deok. A stone stele was erected in Ton Tui district. Each household also received a piece of cotton fabric. People clapped and cheered. Thank you, Goo Deok, for bringing them honor. John He took Goo Deok to the market. Everyone in the market showed great respect for Goo Deok. I appreciate you as a member of the Foreign Affairs Ministry for helping the poor have a better life. Goo Deok feels delighted that all the efforts along this path have finally found meaning. She decides to be selfish for once and follow what her heart tells her. John He is choked up. Say, Goo Deok, let's build our own beautiful life. And stand by Goo Deok. You will not regret giving up your dreams. On the contrary, you will feel that you have stepped onto the greatest stage of life. With Goo Deok as your wife, you are the hero who achieved your dreams. John He and Goo Deok. pledged that they would not reveal their identities. However, at that moment, they were unaware of the impending danger. After being released, the one-eyed man returned to report to his master, Park Jun. He said he wouldn't reveal his master, but the very next moment, he was killed by the master's men. To silence Park Jun from continuing to entertain guests, no one expected that. The visitors were actually the master and the young lady whom Goo Deok Yi had served many years ago. Goo Deok Yi and John He cleared their misunderstandings and decided to stay in Chinsu County. On the way back, John He felt that even the air was filled with sweetness. Being next to Goo Deok Yi as her husband was what he had always dreamed of, and now it had finally come true. The two decided to tell the family, and everyone was overjoyed. But the younger brother recognized, in Goo Deok Yi's eyes, there is still a bit of anxiety. He guesses that Goo Deok Yi is worried. The identity of John He has been exposed. It could affect the family. He gently comforts Goo Deok Yi that he will take John He home. He only hopes Goo Deok Yi can be with the one he loves. From now on, live for yourself and don't worry too much. Goo Deok Yi went back to the room to rest. While taking off her clothes, she heard a noise in the room. Looking back, she saw John He emerging from under the covers. She was startled and hugged her clothes tightly. She asked him why he had barged into her room. John He said he had decided they would live together as husband and wife. So, naturally, they should sleep in the same bed like husband and wife. Goo Deok Yi hurriedly explained. The two haven't held an official wedding. It's just pretending. A couple absolutely cannot sleep in the same bed. John He insisted. He believed that only this way could they seem like a real couple. If they still sleep separately, it would be easy for others to suspect. Goo Deok Yi didn't listen to him. I'm determined to chase you out. The next day, Goo Deok Yi continued her work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Maxim brought breakfast, saying it was specially prepared by John He, according to her tastes. Goo Deok Yi intended to arrange the housework for the servants before going to work, but Maxim reassured her, saying her husband had already summoned all the servants and assigned tasks. Once everything was settled, John He advised that Goo Deok Yi should not have to worry about anything and focus entirely on her work. This made Goo Deok Yi feel touched. Just as she was about to leave, John He called her back, worried that she might feel anxious after not working for a while, so she held her hand. He teaches her how to motivate herself. This intimate scene of the two makes the servants watching feel shy. Turning their faces away, Maxim and the others are very pleased with how the two live together, thinking to themselves that if there were another child, it would be perfect. But to have a child, they need to bring the two together to consummate the marriage first. Because of this, several people secretly drilled a hole in the ceiling of John He's room without him knowing. John He went to pick up Goo Deok Yi after work. The two strolled down a starlit path in extremely relaxed moods. Goo Deok Yi shared trivial work matters with John He. Their worries melted away by the time they reached home. Maxim and the others started acting, saying that John He's room had collapsed and was uninhabitable. Slowly losing my mind. Didn't expect this to be a trap. Planned to sleep temporarily with Miryung for one night, to give the room to John He. Maxim hurriedly stopped it, saying that the couple always sleeps together. It's not a good time to bother you. Seeing that, he didn't give Goo Deok Yi a chance to retort. He pushed her into the room. The two lay stiffly on the bed, remembering the last time they shared a room was at Mount Wonfeng, 7 years ago. John He took the opportunity to say that Goo Deok Yi had fallen into the water. You gave her artificial respiration. I wonder if that counts as the first kiss for both of them. Goo Deok Yi hurriedly explained it was a life-saving action. How could it be considered a kiss? After saying that, she turned her back and ignored him. John He tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Goo Deok Yi reminded him. There's a novel you wrote on the bedside. If you can't sleep, you can read a book. John He saw the worn cover and knew that she had read it countless times. He couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. During those days apart, Goo Deok Yi relied on reading to get through the long nights. Midnight. John He heard Goo Deok Yi crying bitterly in her sleep. He hurriedly called Goo Deok Yi awake and asked her what she dreamed about. Goo Deok Yi spoke truthfully. She dreamed of her father and the young lady recounting old stories. Those stories felt like nightmares. For years, they have haunted her, making her often lose sleep. John He did not expect the mental burden of Goo Deok Yi's has never been lifted. To lull Goo Deok Yi to sleep, he transforms into a storyteller, telling about the first time they met, the story of how he fell in love with her. At first sight, Goo Deok Yi listens to the story and slowly drifts off to sleep. John He gently patted her shoulder, his eyes full of pity. He spoke of Miss So-hee, whom he had once served, saying she was about to be married off to the magistrate Park Jun as a concubine. So he was filled with resentment, reproaching her father for selling her to gain status, even selling her own daughter. Her father showed no remorse, insist that relying on her daughter for happiness is a natural thing, so he blames her misfortune on Cho Goo Deok Yi, saying that she speaks harshly and if she finds Goo Deok Yi, she will definitely make her life a living hell. Shortly after that, so he was taken to Judge Park Soon's house to get married. She cannot resist. She can only helplessly accept the truth. A father sells his daughter for glory. She knows well. The judge continuously seizes prime land in Hanyang, so she said outright that she values his power. So he doesn't need any cables at all. She just asks him for help to find someone. After saying that, she shows him the portrait of Goo Deok Yi. In another development, John He intends to help Goo Deok Yi resolve his difficulties. He decides to participate in the exams to find an official position. He studies very hard and asks Goo Deok for assistance. Goo Deok sets a strict timetable for him. He was required not to neglect his studies even a little bit. From then on, Jeon Hee shut himself away to study hard. One day, his brother-in-law came to see Jeon Hee with a hesitant look on his face. Jeon Hee then went out drinking with him. He listened to his brother-in-law confide. His brother-in-law was worried about the relationship between him and Myeong. After bringing Myeong home, the two of them were still very awkward with each other. Sung feels that Myeong stays because of the child. Myeong also believes that Sung accepts her because of their child, Jeon. He comforts her brother-in-law. To love someone, you must be brave enough to get close. Don't be afraid of rejection. I see the struggles of Goo Deok. He carries everything alone, with a strong desire to share the burden for her. He decided to participate in the exams despite his age. He couldn't help but think about what he would do if one day he was pushed out by Goo Deok. But the deep feelings he had for Goo Deok gave him unparalleled courage. Seeing her brother-in-law hesitating about his feelings for Myeong, Jeon Hee couldn't help but advise, instead of silently guessing Myeong's feelings, it would be better to actively express your own. Speak directly to Myeong, that you will always be by her side. At this moment, Goo Deok is returning home from work. He sees some slave hunters on the road, carrying swords and knives. He is worried that so he sent them to find him. I hurried home to find Jeon Hee, but he wasn't there. Myeong said the two brothers had gone out drinking and would be back soon. Goo Deok was captivated by the children's toys that Myeong had made. He gently picked them up and stroked them. Myeong advised her to have a child. She said that the process of pregnancy would bring her peace of mind. True happiness comes from love on both sides. Goo Deok agrees with that, but is afraid of this happiness. It's late at night and the two haven't returned. Goo Deok grows more anxious and sends someone to look for them. Not long after, the servant brings them back. I don't want to talk to Myeong. Goo Deok also pulls Jeon Hee into the room. Vu clearly worried about Jeon Hee's safety, but her words were like daggers. Jeon Hee's existence made her tense. Just a little wind blowing through the grass. Leiko also feared Jeon Hee's impersonation being discovered, his true identity being revealed. She lived better when Jeon Hee wasn't around. Jeon Hee's heart felt like it was being stabbed. He didn't say a word, stood up, and left. Goo Deok immediately panicked. Without having time to put on her shoes, she ran outside to find Jeon Hee. She saw Jeon Hee with the slave hunters. Thinking he was in danger, she picked up a stone and rushed to shield Jeon Hee. She ordered the slave hunters to back off. Jeon Hee told those people to go ahead, then explained to Goldnook that those were special brothers he sought out to help find her father. Goldnook, frightened, almost fell. Honestly, I thought Jeon Hee wanted to leave. Jeon Hee promised that no matter how harsh Goldnook's words were, he wouldn't leave him. Goo Deok explains that she has never received love and has never felt happiness. These beautiful days feel like a dream, and she is afraid that when she wakes up, everything will disappear. Goo Deok gathers all her courage to face her heart, and honestly says that she cannot lose Jeon Hee. The two of them set aside all worries and decide to become a real couple. Jeon Hee carried Goo Deok home, thinking everyone was asleep. Little did he know, there were still issues to resolve. Sung-do was struggling with Myeong. He stubbornly asked Myeong how much of her feelings for him were genuine. Myeong answered honestly. At first, she truly intended to approach him, but her willingness to risk her life to save him from the carriage was real. The feelings of happiness after marriage are also real. Myeong did not expect to always be troubled by those past events. She couldn't help but mock herself. If it weren't for being pregnant, he probably wouldn't have kept her by his side. Sung was just about to explain, when Myeong suddenly felt something unusual in her leg. Looking down, she saw blood flowing from her legs. She cried out in panic, calling for Goo Deok. Goo Deok quickly helped her lie down. Then he quickly went to summon a doctor. After examining her, the doctor told everyone that Myeong was not pregnant. Her current condition was due to irregular menstruation. Myeong couldn't believe it. Recently, she has frequently felt nauseous. It is clearly a sign of pregnancy, the doctor explained. Perhaps it's because she wants a child too much, so her body has shown signs of a false pregnancy. Goo Deok and Jeon Hee advised her brother's wife. Myeong truly loves him, ever since he brought her back from the courthouse. Then you should trust and take good care of her. Sungja deeply regretted going to Myeong's room. He saw Myeong's diary entries, written for her child. Every line was full of anticipation for the little life. Thinking of Myeong's sadness when her wish was shattered, he couldn't help but cry and stayed up all night with her, waiting for Sung-do to wake up. He discovered that Myeong had left a letter and left home. He rushed to Miriam's foster father's house to look for her, but learned that she had gone to a brothel. Before being taken home by her mother, Miriam had done cleaning and cooking at the brothel. Now, to make a living, she had to return to her old profession. I never expected that just after starting work, I would be mistaken for a prostitute and harassed by a customer. In a critical situation, Sung managed to arrive in time. He declared to the unruly customer that he was Miriam's husband. The two of them looked for a quiet place to share their thoughts. Finally, he said the words he'd never said before. He loves Miriam. Even though Miriam initially approached him with ulterior motives, his feelings haven't changed. They embraced and cried, then held hands and returned home. Soon after, his brother-in-law's appointment papers arrived. He was about to leave for Hanyang to assume his post. The night before his departure, the younger brother expressed deep gratitude to Goo Deok For the years he has dedicated to teaching him, he originally intended to take a job close to home, but things did not go as he hoped. Goo Deok sent him off with tears in her eyes. Young rolled up her sleeve to reveal the bracelet that Goo Deok gave her. It was a thoughtful and warm gift, the first thing she received. She will definitely always wear it with her later, before her brother-in-law sets off, especially reminding Jeon-hee to take good care of his sister. Then, under the watchful eyes of everyone, he set off and left. The next day, Goo Deok heard from an acquaintance that Madam Hong is encouraging everyone to invest money in ginseng cultivation. Though Goo Deok has no idea about this and plans to send someone to investigate. But since the exam is approaching, he should focus entirely on tutoring John for the exam, and not get distracted. So he didn't pay attention to this matter, but was completely unaware of the great disaster about to strike. The new district chief had taken office. At that time, Goo Deok still did not know that this district chief was the master she had once served, the father of Miss Sawyer. Right after taking office, the district chief introduced to the village head, Cha-chun, a lucrative business deal. He has a friend named Pig Sun, who is selling immortality ginseng seeds. This variety is really special. After some persuasion, he agreed to only supply seeds to Chinsu County. He hopes the village chief will encourage all the residents of the county to buy the seeds to grow immortality ginseng. Father-son went home to discuss this matter with Madam Hong. She readily agreed, because she wanted to hire Master Cho for her son, whose studies have not been successful. Her family has been struggling financially for a long time. They are hoping to make a large sum of money from this ginseng. However, Father Chun sensed something fishy. So he needs to consider carefully, and especially advise his wife to absolutely not act thoughtlessly. During this time, Goo Deok is wholeheartedly tutoring Jeon-hee in his studies. With her by his side, Jeon-hee is often distracted. He can't help but touch her, pinching her cheeks and looking at her puffed-up face. Maxie brings delicious food for two people. He tells them to eat while they study. Jeon-hee opens his mouth, waiting for Goo Deok Yi to feed him. After eating, he also feeds Goo Deok Yi. The dipping sauce accidentally gets on the corner of Goo Deok Yi's mouth. He reaches out to wipe it away, unconsciously putting his finger in his mouth. Halfway through sucking, he realizes something feels off. He looks up at Goo Deok Yi, who shyly blushes. The atmosphere became hot and tense. They unconsciously moved closer to each other. Following their hearts, they kissed. However, just as their lips were about to touch, Jeon-hee suddenly stopped. He quickly stood up and explained, "This is a crucial stage of my studies. I can't let my mind wander. The whole village is watching your exam. You can't embarrass yourself." After saying that, he went back to his room. He said before the exam, the two of them had to sleep separately. The feeling of a kiss that never happened disturbed his heart endlessly. Unable to sleep, she hugged a pillow and went to Jeon-hee's room. She saw him diligently reading a book. Didn't have the heart to disturb, so I returned to the room. Exam day. The whole family went to cheer for Jeon-hee. Jeon-hee confidently walked into the exam hall. Not long after, the results were posted. Mrs. Hong saw her son's name on the board and was overjoyed, constantly boasting to Jeon-hee and Goo Deok. Jeon-hee apologizes for disappointing everyone's expectations. Immediately after, Ka Kwan steps out to announce the list of successful candidates, including Jeon-hee's name, the clan leader's wife. Stunned, and Goo Deok and the others surrounding her, Jeon-hee laughs, dances, and celebrates his top ranking. Jeon-hee's family holds a celebratory party for him. Jeon-hee asks Goo Deok to fulfill his last wish. The party ends. Goo Deok brings Maxim a new set of clothes. He also wants to hold a wedding ceremony for Maxim and his lover. The two lovers have a wedding ceremony. It is witnessed by Goo Deok and Jeon-hee. Although the ceremony is simple, but for them it was a great honor. After the ceremony, Goo Deok and Jeon-hee went for a walk. Goo Deok thought that the wish that Jeon-hee wanted to fulfill was their wedding night. Unexpectedly, it was to set up Maxim. Jeon-hee was serious. You know, Goo Deok wants to see the people around him happy. Anything she wants to do, I will help her accomplish. But in reality, my initial wish was to consummate our wedding night with you. Goo Deok, upon hearing that, spontaneously kissed him. Jeon-hee received the signal and quickly responded. The two were immersed in the sweetness of love. The next day, a villager came to seek help from Goo Deok. He had mortgaged his land to buy the everlasting ginseng from that pig, June. But he was already 3 days overdue, and still hadn't heard anything from Hyo-sun. At this point, he felt that he had been deceived by him. Goo Deok was startled. Other villagers have come to seek help about this. It seems this matter is not insignificant. After Jeon-hee topped the civil service examination, took office and was working with Father Chun, the two were talking, when suddenly several villagers barged in looking for the village head, settling the accusations. The entire county of Jeonsu is in chaos. Everyone, under the persuasion of Lady Hong, has invested all their wealth in buying everlasting ginseng seeds. As a result, it was discovered that the man's son is a fraud. At the same time, a large number of citizens came to Lady Hong demanding justice. Lady Hong pleaded her innocence. She only acted on the orders of District Chief Kim. Knowing that District Chief Kim was rejected by me, he went to seduce my wife into cooperating. Cha-chun was very angry. He took Jeon-hee to the district office to confront the district chief. When Jeon-hee saw the district chief's face, she immediately instructed the servant to go home. tell Goo Deok to escape. He intended to take advantage of the situation to leave. Before County Officer Kim recognized him, but was called back by the county officer, who said he looked very familiar. John Hee tried to stay calm, and said he was the special inspector of Jeonsu County. Cha Chun, full of energy, pushed John Hee aside, and stepped forward to struggle with County Officer Kim. Just then, Goo Deok entered, but the servant was a step behind, unable to warn Goo Deok of the danger. Seeing the magistrate now, images of the oppression she suffered years ago flashed through Goo Deok's mind, leaving her numb. Her limbs were paralyzed. John Hee looked back and saw her. He immediately whispered, urging her to leave. Goo Deok quickly turned and rushed out. Her whole body went limp, she almost fell. She thought she had escaped. Then, Sawyer appeared, walking towards her. She immediately bowed her head, avoiding eye contact. As soon as Sawyer passed, she left, but Sawyer still discovered her. Goo Deok pretended to be calm. Lying. I am Miss Tae Young of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Chul Soo said so he was slandering her. That she could sue her for disrespecting an official. So he asked the servant beside her, is the person in front of me Goo Deok? The maid answered without hesitation. She said this person is not Goo Deok. Sawyer got angry when she saw the maid lying blatantly. She wanted to confront the maid. Then Goo Deok warned that in Tantui County, it's forbidden to mistreat maids in the house. To divert attention, she intentionally mistook Sawyer for the wife of the district magistrate, reminding her to pay attention to her noble status, not to act without decorum. So he corrected her, saying the district magistrate is her father, while Judge Park Soon is her husband. Goo Deok was astonished. Didn't expect it. The person so he relied on was actually Judge Park Soon, the one who was involved in the illegal gold mining 7 years ago. At the same time, Cha Chun also learned from the county chief that the county chief is the father-in-law of Judge Park Jun. When Cha Chun heard this name, he quickly pulled John Hee away from the county office. Goldnook and John Hee returned home. Both of them are aware that the current situation is extremely dangerous. The servant quickly packed their belongings, urging the two to escape immediately. Yu took Ra's pre-prepared luggage, telling John Hee and the servant to come along. Since John Hee arrived in Jeonsu County, she had been worried that this day would come, so she had prepared early. Sun Hee was determined not to leave. He participated in the civil service examination and became a special inspector, just to be able to be by Goo Deok's side. The servant saw this, and could only stay with everyone, sharing their hardships. At this moment, danger was gradually approaching, so he fiercely demanded Cha Ra to order the arrest of Goo Deok. As long as they used torture, Goo Deok would definitely confess. But the county magistrate Kim said, without evidence, you can't arrest someone. It's not permissible to question the lady arbitrarily. He even blamed So Hee to quickly return to her husband's house to serve. At this moment, she reports to Madam Hong, and also learns that the one behind the county magistrate is the Judge Park Soon, the person involved in the gold mine case 7 years ago. Ruined them. They suspect Park Soon bribed county magistrate Kim. The magistrate colluded with a swindler to defraud the people. But currently, there's no evidence to prove that the magistrate and the swindler, Hyo-sun, are in cahoots. Now they can only hope for Goo Deok. She believes she can help the people get justice. Goo Deok tosses and turns in bed, unable to sleep. At this point, she must go see someone. She goes with John Hiko to find the aunt who helped her in the past. Goo Deok confesses that she was a slave girl. Seeing the two unharmed, the two elders joyfully cry. Goo Deok discovers that Uncle Kim is unable to speak. Aunt Kim, also crippled, asked the reason. Seeing the two of them hesitating and unwilling to speak, she immediately understood it was because they had helped her escape, and they had been beaten by Lady Sawyer. Goo Deok hugged her aunt and sobbed. She had implicated them. The matriarch brought Lady Hong to find Goo Deok, asking for her help. Lady Hong was repentant. Because I have done many things that hurt Goo Deok. I hope that Lord Goo Deok will not hold petty grievances, to help catch the pig Chun, and return the hard-earned money to the people. Goo Deok asked her to recount the details of the incident at that time. Mrs. Hong recalled that the district magistrate, Kim, had introduced the pig son to her. He said that the immortality flower could resist pests and drought. Furthermore, the growing period is only 3 months, is a precious treasure that can lead to wealth, so she caught fire. John Hee and Cha Chun also came to find the county magistrate. Once again after that, John Hee recounted the news he had learned. As for Goo Deok, the county magistrate, Kim is pretending to look for Hyo-sun. It seemed like he wanted to prolong the time, until everyone gave up. Goo Deok already knew that Hyo-sun was a renowned physician in Hanyang. Everyone in the county's pharmacies knew his name, so she told John Hee to find him personally. Then she decided to meet the people who lent money to the commoners, because after the incident happened, they immediately demanded the people to pay. She wanted to buy more time for the people. Before the two acted, strange rumors suddenly appeared in the village. It turned out that she used Sawyer to force Goo Deok to admit her identity. The rumor that Goo Deok is a servant has spread everywhere. Lady Kim came to find Goo Deok, saying Sohyun was looking for her, requesting an investigation into Goo Deok. Lady Kim spoke directly to Sohyun. Her maid had run away 15 years ago, and Goo Deok has been in Jeonsu County for 15 years now. Goo Deok is not only a foreigner, she is also the daughter-in-law of the county magistrate. Previously, she had cultivated her brother-in-law to become a top scholar in Jeonsu County. The most respected person is not the Sawyer, but Goo Deok. Lady Kim successfully chased the Sawyer away, but she hopes Goo Deok will tell her the truth. Goo Deok admits that she is the servant that So Heng has been looking for. Years ago, the whole Tae Young family was murdered in the hotel. You are the only survivor. You woke up to find yourself in Chasu County. After discovering the truth, your grandmother still sees you as the Tae Young lady and accepts you. Years ago, Sohia buried your sick mother alive. Now they are threatening this village, which you consider your second home. You can't escape. Furthermore, you've lived as Miss Tae Young. You must take her place. Fulfill Miss Tae Young's dream of governing the country and helping the people. Madam Kim pities you for what you've been through and respects your heart. Drink the cup of tea. Say everything that has been heard is forgotten. So she let he leave Choltsu County. John he came up with a plan. Good. He sent a servant disguised as a bounty hunter. He told the two to spread false news that they had found the whereabouts of the snail in Hanyang. Bao so he immediately went home. So he believed it was true and left the next day. As for Maxim, following Goo Deok's instructions, he secretly gave Aunt Kim a package. Inside was some money, hoping to help improve the lives of uncle and aunt. To make their lives a little better. In another development, my husband has reported to Your Highness about the people of Chinsu County being deceived. Your Highness has sent a supervisor to the county to handle this matter. This person is the son of the village chief, named Du Kun, the son of Lady Kim Deok Hun, who grew up in Cholsu County. Now it can be considered a triumphant return. I pray for father to return with me. But Lee Trung still feels guilty about the matter. From 7 years ago when he caused the death of Sung Yun's father, he once felt he had no face to confront Goo Deok and others. Moreover, he has shown symptoms similar to many others. The whole body is covered in sores, suspecting that I have a strange disease. At this moment, Judge Park soon ordered their subordinates to collect the best 10 herbal medicines, spread rumors about the strange disease. Once the quarantine is implemented, the price of herbal medicines will skyrocket. They can take this opportunity to profit. Judge Park soon. As soon as she finished speaking, so he hurried home to interrogate Park soon about Goo Deok. He criticized her for being noisy. He grabbed her by the neck and threatened to kill her if she didn't listen. So he fell silent at that moment. Not long after, Du Pun arrived to take office in Jeonsu. He spoke with Goo Deok. The magistrate Park Jun, supported by the left minister, who has led the corrupt officials exploiting the people, is the pocket of the left minister. To break the left minister's plan to control the country, they must cut off the financial source of Judge Park Jun. Currently, they need to investigate the scams in various places, related to Judge Park Jun, or not. To find the mastermind, they must locate the pig Jun. John he found out that Hyo-sun was kicked out of his family in Hanyang because of gambling. He and Cha-chun discussed, and decided to set up a fake casino to lure him in, then capture him. The fake casino quickly distributed flyers and started operating. John he and the others successfully caught Hyo-sun coming to gamble, but he completely knows nothing about selling immortality ginseng. Madam Hong asserts, this person is definitely not Hyo-sun. Mrs. Hong describes him as having high cheekbones, with a large mole on his face. He is absolutely not the person in front. Goo Deok asks Hyo-sun in front, do you know District Chief Kim? He said it was his first time here. He had never met the district chief. John he reacted, surely someone is impersonating Hyo-chun to deceive people. Everyone is regretting their wasted effort. Then Clerk Park soon suddenly appeared. He said he wanted to meet Duk-hoon. He is still pretending to care about the situation in Chosu County. Judge Park soon then turned his gaze to Goo Deok. He already knew from that Sawyer that the servant she was looking for was actually Goo Deok from Chinsu County. 7 years ago, Goo Deok ruined his gold mine plan. He's harbored resentment towards Goo Deok for a long time. Park Jun's faction and County Magistrate Kim were investigating Goo Deok's identity. He intentionally summoned several people, lying that he wanted to help solve Chosu County's difficulties. After starting the conversation, he questioned Goo Deok about why he deceived his wife. It was because so he said she had found the maid she was looking for. And then he tricked his wife out of the county Chosu Jeonhee. He was about to respond when Madam Kim suddenly spoke up, saying that she was the one who deceived So he. Currently, Chinsu County is in trouble. But so he went everywhere, spreading rumors that this action was detrimental to the people's unity in overcoming difficulties. That's why she had no choice but to do this. County Magistrate Kim saw Goo Deok for the first time. Originally, Judge Park Jun ordered him to identify this person, to see if she was the maid Goo Deok or not. But the County Magistrate Kim was shaken by Goo Deok's calm demeanor. He wasn't sure if the woman before him had ever been a lowly maid. Additionally, the fact that the lady of the house took the initiative to accept the deception as her own meant that the two of them did not notice any flaws. Can only leave. Goo Deok took the couple, the village chief and Lady Ra to the backyard to see the aloe vera. Not long ago, the pig named Sun came to Goo Deok's house begging for food. Maxie brought him ordinary vegetable rice. Seeing the aloe vera in the rice, he exclaimed that it was too luxurious. Because aloe vera can not only be used as medicine, but also for beauty care, is a precious medicinal herb sold in Hanyang. The price is very high, and Goo Deok and John he heard this news. They kept asking Seo Sun if their aloe could be sold at a good price. He said their aloe was of top quality. Perhaps it's because the soil here is suitable for aloe growth. Hearing this, Goo Deok Yi was extremely happy. If aloe is valuable, then they can solve the difficulties for the people. Speaking of which, Goo Deok Yi shared the mature trees and saplings for everyone to plant together. The madam was deeply moved. She took Goo Deok Yi's hand, thanking her for her noble heart. After that, Jeon Hee and Cha Chun quickly found a wasteland suitable for growing aloe vera. Jeon Hee advised village chief Cha Chun to definitely work according to the rules and provide proper land clearing permits. After everything was arranged, Cha Chun and the others led everyone to plant aloe vera. An elderly woman also joined the team. Her husband told their son, and that Cha Chun knew this land belonged to her. Cha Chun just thought she was senile, saying the land belonged to the whole Trosu district. After harvesting the aloe vera, Goo Deok Yi and Jeon Hee went to Hanyang to sell it. Goo Deok Yi took Jeon Hee to his mother's grave to pay respects. She originally thought that for the rest of her life, she would. I won't come back here anymore. I never expected that under the arrangement of fate, I would once again return to this land. She introduced Thew to her mother, Jeon Hee, her husband. Jeon Hee swore to his mother-in-law, whom he had never met, that he would definitely take good care of Goo Deok Yi. On the way back, Goo Deok Yi took a detour past Jeon Hee's house. The two were astonished to find a white lantern hanging at Jeon Hee's door. Cha, his father has passed away. The family is holding the funeral. Heartbroken for Jeon Hee, unable to properly bid farewell to his father. Inwardly, he blames himself, especially setting up an altar for Jeon Hee's father, so that he could perform the rituals himself. Jeon Hee couldn't hold back his emotions. He wept uncontrollably. He didn't expect that their meeting a few years ago would be their last. He regretted not being able to repay his father's kindness. After regaining his composure, the two went to meet the herbal medicine merchant to discuss the price of the aloe vera. The herbal medicine merchant acknowledged the quality of their aloe vera. The price is 10 liang per caddy. Two men returned to Jiangsu County with good news. Both said the merchant would buy at 10 liang per caddy. They projected a harvest of 2,000 caddies next year. They signed a contract with the herbal medicine merchant. They received 6,000 liang in advance. A deposit was made, awaiting the completion of the harvest next year. The remaining amount will be paid then. Jeon Hee and the village head shared the deposit they received among the villagers to help everyone reduce some of their debt. They believed that receiving the full amount next year would surely compensate for the losses caused by the scam. Receiving the money, the villagers were incredibly grateful, shouting "Long live Jeon Hee." Jeon Hee shyly looked at his wife. The girl replied with a bright smile. In the evening, Goo Deok Yi and Jeon Hee drank together. Jeon Hee felt emotional that he had once regretted for not being able to bring joy to everyone through performances. But today, in the role of Sung-yoon, he also made everyone smile. It was a sense of achievement he had never experienced before. Goo Deok Yi was very happy. She was sure that Jeon Hee was her soulmate. He was a like-minded companion to her. That night, she took the initiative to suggest that the two of them share a room. Jeon immediately pulled her into his warm embrace. The two finally experienced their belated wedding night. However, early the next morning, the old man's son ran over, panting heavily. Report to them that the plot of land for cultivation seems to belong to someone else. Upon hearing this, Goo Deok Yi and Jeon Hee immediately went to meet County Magistrate Kim. County Magistrate Kim presented a land reclamation permit that was issued 2 years ago, stating that the land belongs to the subordinate of Judge Park Jun. Goo Deok Yi doubts the authenticity of the permit. She says a person totally unrelated to Cholsu County. How can they obtain a cultivation permit for this wasteland? County Chief Kim loudly says, everything is based on paperwork. Since the land has been cultivated and farmed, they can continue their work. But the landowner should also get a share. 8 parts for the landowner, 2 parts for the villagers. It's daylight robbery. Afterwards, the two returned to discuss this with Father Chun. He was extremely heartbroken. Only now did he understand. When applying for the land reclamation permit, Magistrate Kim always used the excuse of official business to delay it. Tell them that my husband will take care of the paperwork later when he has time. Thinking back, I realize it was a trap he set. Goo Deok Yi suspected Magistrate Kim had forged the documents. The old man said that land belonged to him, so the village head told him to go home and find the deed. Chun wasn't very hopeful because the old man was rambling and his words weren't credible. Just then, the servant arrived with the news that the old man had found the land deed. He and his son were hurrying to the magistrate's office. Woo Dao and the others were overjoyed. They also hurried there. But when they arrived, they saw Magistrate Jean beating the old man's son. They falsely accused each other of forging the land deed and tearing it up. Jeon Hee rushed to stop him. Magistrate Kim cruelly wanted to retaliate. Goo Deok Yi held the magistrate tightly. She wanted to observe the situation. It wasn't the time for conflict. Goo Deok Yi returned to piece together the old man's land deed. She searched for legal documents. She decided to appeal to the supervisor. It's very fast. The case regarding the ownership of the wasteland has been brought to trial. Park Jun's subordinates brought along 5 people from the foreign ministry to confront the opposition. She presented the land deed of the elderly man. She said this was a division from 48 years ago. The land deed is the elderly man's dowry from that foreign ministry. This complaint lacks witnesses. There are also no records, so it could very well be forged. Furthermore, it presents a medical certificate from the doctor. It claims the elderly man is confused and untrustworthy. Goo Deok Yi calmly raises the evidence in His hand, this is the judgment document. It confirms that the elderly man has won the lawsuit against his siblings. Regarding the ownership of this land, it's still early. More than that, both the land deed of subordinate Park Jun and the cultivation permit, the External Affairs Department of Kia is suspicious. The ruling document cannot be taken lightly. It was obtained by the External Affairs Department. Goo Deok explained. This document was issued by her late father-in-law. He copied it down while still being a district chief. He was worried that the judgment document could be damaged or lost in a fire, so he often copied it during his term. As soon as he said this, the external officials realized they had no way out, and immediately withdrew the lawsuit. The supervisor also declared that the land belonged to the old man. Hearing the verdict, Goo Deok's heart was relieved. The people rejoiced immensely. After the matter was resolved, Jeon Hee suddenly stood up and accused Magistrate Kim, saying that he did not care about the people's hardships, only thinking of exploitation. He had obtained a sample of the magistrate's handwriting. From the county office, the handwriting was identical to that on the document. The land and the deeds of subordinate Park Jun prove that the documents and deeds were forged by County Magistrate Kim. The officials in the county office are all ready to testify to this. County Magistrate Kim shouts that Jeon Hee is slandering him. Jeon Hee continues to accuse County Magistrate Kim. He is not only failing to protect the people. Yesterday, you even beat the old man's son, leaving him crippled, right in front of the old man. According to the law, I demand the dismissal of the magistrate and a punishment of 100 lashes. The people all responded in agreement. Jeon Hee requests the censorate to deal with Magistrate Kim. According to the law, the censorate agrees with the people's wishes, order the arrest of the district chief, and immediately carry out the punishment. Goo Deok looked at Jeon Hee gratefully. She had no idea that Jeon Hee had already prepared to deal with that wicked district chief. She thanked him for avenging the people. Jeon gently took his lover's hand. He had promised to help Goo Deok take revenge. County Magistrate Kim was dragged away for execution, begging Goo Deok Yi for mercy. Seeing Goo Deok Yi's familiar gaze, that gaze was exactly like the resolute expression when she attempted to assassinate him before. Not long after, news of County Magistrate Kim being killed by a Roy reached uncle and aunt. Kim shed tears. Thank you, Goo Deok, for eliminating the cruel magistrate. He didn't consider the servants as anything, saving them from their misery after the great revenge. Goo Deok joyfully discovers she is pregnant. Jeon Hee is overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father. He plans to take Goo Deok to the seaside for a rest. He went shopping for supplies for the trip, but on his way back, he saw a group of soldiers running towards his house. Hearing the soldiers shouting, he sensed something was wrong. He instructed his servant to find Jeon Hee, and absolutely must signal Jeon Hee with one finger. He also retracted his words. The officer, holding a drawing, rushed in to capture Goo Deok's. Jeon Hee was in agony. He wanted to rush forward but was held back by the servant. Goo Deok had once said that if you see a sign of a finger, you must leave immediately. Only then can everyone survive. After that, the officer ransacked the O family home. They couldn't find Jeon Hee anywhere. His lover bought him time to escape. She directed the soldiers in the opposite direction. In the ancestral hall, everyone was whispering, debating whether Goo Deok was a runaway slave. But Lady Kim firmly stood by Goo Deok. She insisted, is the Sawyer seeking revenge for the death of father? Goo Deok and Jeon Hee have contributed a lot to this Jeonsu district. How can you be ungrateful? Let's not jump to conclusions. Hearing this, the other ladies also put aside their doubts. At this moment, Sung-do ran in to report news. Your sister has been taken to the Forbidden Palace. However, the Grand Tutor said he already knew about this. The Judicial Department has already received the information from AI. They've started investigating. The reason the Grand Tutor couldn't participate is because they knew. I have an acquaintance among the Goo Deok clan. I heard that the person who reported this was Judicial Officer Park Jun. This side chose he and Sol Young. After walking halfway, we stopped to rest. Seo Young kindly massaged his aching calves. For many years, what Seo Young has done has gone beyond the duties of a servant. No matter the difficulties or dangers faced, he never left Jeon Hee's side. Seo Young has been the only true friend in his life. The money Seo Young gave, Jeon Hee only took the vase and returned the rest. He knew Seo Young desired a wealthy life, so he told her to take the money and go live in Hanyang. At that moment, Seo Young understood her uncle wanted her to leave. Because the officer mentioned Jeon Hee's name, it was clear there was concrete evidence. If you escape now, the punishment will fall entirely on the pregnant woman you are with. But if you confess, your act of faking your death and defying orders will be exposed. It will certainly be a death sentence. In this predicament, you decide to choose to confess. The soldier finally found the trace and chased to this place. Jeon Hee told Seo Young to escape, but the soldier's arrow was aimed at a vital spot on Seo Young. In that moment, Jeon Hee sacrificed himself to shield Seo Young from the oncoming arrow. In the end, both were captured. The girl is wearing a red outfit, amid the sighs of passers-by heading to Hanyang. People angrily threw stones at her, while cursing, calling her a despicable runaway slave, daring to impersonate a noble lady. She even dared to put on a noble facade in front of Jeon Hee. He was also imprisoned in the same jail as her. Seo Young tried to call for a doctor, but no one cared about the two of them. In this situation, Seo Young and Jeon Hee knew they couldn't escape, so they told jokes to forget their current misfortune. Recently, the epidemic has been rampant, causing widespread panic. They heard Dr. Kim say that many people were ill. The translator was taken to the centralized isolation area. That place was soon to become Lee Trung's residence. He attributed everything to the consequences of his wicked deeds, so he calmly accepted it. He also heard rumors about Goo Deok Yi being a slave who escaped and reminded Madam Kim that the heart of the judge Park Jun is very treacherous and selfish. He will absolutely not target Goo Deok to take revenge for Cha So-hee. There may be other hidden intentions in this matter. Goo Deok has been coerced by the soldiers. He recounts that since fleeing and hiding in the inn for a year, until she assumed the identity of Miss Tae Young and moved to Chinsu County, she concealed her true identity for 9 years. When she was forced to confess her true identity, in a daze, Goo Deok saw the image of her grandmother from years ago. Every word, every sentence she spoke to her. From today onwards, you are Tae Young. The soldier continued to speculate based on old records. When the brothel caught fire, Tae Young pushed Goo Deok out of the flames. Because Lady Tae Young had left home since she was young, to follow Cha to Daiting. So, an AI recognized her face. Thus, Goo Deok randomly switched identities with Lady Tae Young. However, Goo Deok's answers were all just speculation, lacking concrete evidence. The military officials saw no evidence, so they remained silent. Then he turned to talk about Jeonhee. When asked if he knew Jeonhee, Goo Deok admitted that he was the storyteller. I came to Jeonsu County 7 years ago. Jeonhee also had his own plans. He half-truthfully fabricated a different story. Goo Deok was a maidservant he admired who he saved 15 years ago. They lost contact after she escaped. 7 years ago, while in Chulsu County, he saw Miss Tae Young and thought she greatly resembled Goo Deok. He then pursued her, but witnessed with her own eyes that she married Sung Yun. And that Sung Yun also looks like Jeonhee. So after admitting to leaving home to return, he faked his death to change his identity, and married the daughter he loves. On this side, Goo Deok still wants to hide it from Jeonhee, but when the officer told her that Jeonhee admitted to the forgery and the crime, she was stunned. Only now did she understand that Jeonhee had never left. Jeonhee truly lives up to his name as a storyteller. The story he spun was incredibly vivid. He pretended to casually confess his crimes. He didn't just deceive the woman he loved, but also the family and servants of the O household, like hundreds of people in the district, even if they don't understand why. In his mind, memories of moments spent with Goo Deok over the past time. The identity is fake, but the feelings are real. Only these memories can comfort him somewhat when facing the fear of imminent death. After the interrogation ended, Jeonhee finally got to see Goo Deok for a short while. He took full responsibility. He only hoped that the person he loved would be released soon. Everything else didn't matter anymore. The pendant held their memories, their joys and sorrows. Now, it was in his hands again. The joy has faded, leaving only endless sorrow. When the jade pendant was there, he was not. When the jade pendant returned, he had already left. Jeonhee's sacrifice was exchanged for the innocence of Goo Deok Yi. On this side, Madam Kim sees Lee Trung off to the place of healing. Before leaving, Lee Trung said there is something hidden in this matter. It's like the Golden Mountain case 7 years ago. It seems like Judge Park is trying to cover something up. Something he's reopening Goo Deok's case. Lee Jung asked Mrs. Kim to tell Goo Deok his suspicions. Let Goo Deok know. Tae Young and Jeonhee are acting nonchalant, like nothing happened. According to the current law, even with a death sentence, they have to wait a few months, or even a few years before execution. The jailer will bring food on time. 2 idle people can sleep. As Tae Young said, killing time together isn't such a bad thing. Besides, they've been master and servant for many years. Deep friendship, even willing to go to the Golden Stream together. Actually, Jeonhee has other plans. His crime is clear. But as long as he confesses in court that Tae Young was coerced by him, then Tae Young can escape punishment. At least, he can take care of Goo Deok instead of Jeonhee. But things often don't go as planned. That night, the police escorted them to the scene for a retrial. The chief has new evidence. He started to suspect that Jeonhee and Goo Deok were in cahoots. They conspired to kill Sung Yun and switch identities. Not much to say. He ordered to interrogate Jeonhee and Tae Young. At the same time, they summoned a witness who was a student of Jeonhee during that meeting. The student acknowledged the unusual relationship between Goo Deok and Jeonhee. He said they not only chatted happily, but also slept in the same room at night. Thus, Goo Deok's lies were exposed, that they were not acquainted with Jeonhee, as well as the story that Jeonhee fabricated, were both exposed. At the order of the chief warden, torture was used to the utmost extent. Both of them were exhausted. Seeing that they still wouldn't confess, the warden was ruthless. Ordered the subordinates to tie Goo Deok to the chair. At this moment, Sung Do kneels on the ground. He begs the chief inspector to spare him. However, he does not care. The 2 sticks continue to strike down. They have tightly pinned Goo Deok's legs. At this moment, Jeonhee takes all the blame for himself. He says it is because he loves Goo Deok too much. So he has taken action against Sung Yun. He himself planned the murder. Jeonhee will be detained on charges of murder until a final verdict is reached, while Goo Deok may be set free. Jeonhee feels relieved. At least before being convicted, he can still protect that person one more time. As they were about to leave, the Grand Minister asked Goo Deok a question. Who are you, exactly? the eldest daughter of the envoy to the Qing dynasty, or a runaway slave of Soyer. She stood there speechless for a long time. At that moment, the gate of the magistrate's office swung open, and Soyer herself. She brought someone Goo Deok hadn't seen in a long time. At that moment, she no longer cared about life or death. She murmured the name she had longed for day and night since 9 years ago. After calling father, Gooda's emotions welled up. She fainted on the spot. The reunion of father and daughter was touching, but also cruel. His identity. In the end, it couldn't be hidden. John He and Tae Young, gasping for breath, were thrown back into prison. All their efforts were in vain. It's a pity for Tae Young. She had saved up money for so long, only to buy a house by the sea, for John He and Goldnook to live a peaceful life. John He talked a lot, but then John He discovered his friend next to him was no longer responsive. He had passed away. He held Seo in his arms, repeatedly saying sorry, in the eerily silent cell. So silent that you could hear the sound of tears falling on him. According to the testimony, John He would also be sentenced to death. Goo Deok returns to her slave status. Just like before, she is taken back to Lady So-hee. So-hee throws a bucket of dirty water over Goo Deok. Everything seems to have returned to the starting point. She is the high and mighty Miss Chow Chow, while Goo Deok and her unborn child are forever under her control. Fortunately, Aunt Kim is taking care of things. Goo Deok's days haven't been too difficult. Every time she brings herbs to the storage, Aunt Kim secretly talks to her for a few moments. I heard that. So he is currently managing the secret storage of the protection room. He has always been selling the pills, made from the stored herbs, but the smell of the herbs is very strong and strange. On this side, Sung-do, following John He's words, is looking for a sunny plot of land for Tae Young's grave. John He thinks that sooner or later he will reach that day, so he asked Sung-do to save him a spot next to Tae Young. Indeed, master and servant can be together even in death. The only thing he worries about is Goo Deok, so he asked Sung-do to deliver a letter. Because Sung is not convenient to show up, she asked Lady Kim to come and inquire. She knows the weakness of that girl, so he says that being just a mere servant, she dares to participate in the noble gathering. Even though So-hee is unwilling, she must bow her head and let her visit the mansion. Besides delivering letters, the lady promised to find a way to save Goo Deok. This means that she will have to live a life in hiding. Once again, she hesitated a bit, but the matriarch asked Goo Deok, is there really no way as the young lady of Tae Young? She felt helpless. Look at Goo Deok's eyes. Finally, a glimmer of hope appears. The matriarch told her that the current outbreak might be related to the Judge Parkian. His grandmother is plotting to hide something. This case is similar to the distraction from her father-in-law 7 years ago. At all costs, you have to leave here. Then, So-hee came to torment Goo Deok again. However, she regained her spirit. So-hee, she argued back immediately. She exposed the truth about Judge Parkium. Agreed, Cho-cha held a position. During the previous interrogation, he took the name of selling someone important, not the most important one. Even if that person dies, it won't cause him any trouble. As for Parkium, he only made So-hee a concubine, just to use her as a hostage. So-hee's father wouldn't dare to reveal him even if caught. So-hee is a little shaken, but still didn't believe Goo Deok's words. At this moment, she raised her arm affected by the strange disease, which made her terrified and run away. She had contracted the infectious disease. Those infected were all taken to the quarantine zone. Goo Deok was no exception. Before Goo Deok arrived at the quarantine zone, Lai Trung was there when his illness worsened. He saw the people in the market wearing face coverings. He felt a sense of familiarity. It was Hida, the person he almost killed. Goo Deok also recognized the face hidden behind the cloth. Hagung, the one who always searched for his master, is Sung-yoon. If Hagung is here, then Sung-yoon must also be present. At this moment, Goo Deok has seen the figure of Sung-yoon in the face-covering scarf. The 7-year-long separation finally comes to an end. The two finally meet again. At this moment, Sung-yoon is still pretending not to know Goo Deok. He doesn't say a word and turns to leave. After that, Goo Deok learned from Hagung about the situation. All these years, Sung-yoon has led Ai Tam and others to help many slaves and refugees. Out of fear of being exposed, he did not continue to contact Goo Deok. But Park Aeon never showed mercy. Not long ago, he ruthlessly murdered all the members of Atom. Only Sung Aeon and he managed to escape. Since then, Sung Aeon has suffered from aphasia. He also endures inner torment. He's also had a heart condition for several years. Now he wants to spend his last 10 days treating patients. So he stayed in the quarantine zone. Goo Deok wasn't really suffering from a strange illness. She suspected the quarantine area held Park Yun's secret, so she risked her life to investigate. Before she left, she entrusted her father to Aunt Kim. The servants gathered for a memorial service. They reminisced about the Tae Young of the past. It was he who taught everyone to drink together. And together we released fireflies, pretending to be slave catchers. How joyful it was. Besides, Tae Young once said that the rice cooked by Maxim is the best. This rice is like a gift for Tae Young in heaven. In a daze, that familiar figure sat beside everyone again. Tae's spirit floated by to greet everyone. He praised the food, saying it was as delicious as his childhood memories. He also boasted about how he had brought the uncle and Maxim together, making a match for them, husband and wife. He also advised the young man beside him to hold back his tears, saying that men shouldn't easily shed tears. After that, he drained his last cup of wine and departed. After Lady Kim left, Lady Hong became the head of the ancestral hall. The ladies all admired the selflessness of the couple, Goo Deok, from the bottom of their hearts. They admired John He's loyalty to Goo Deok. Thinking it over, how could two people who are so dedicated to the villagers possibly be the culprits of harming the poor? Even if Goo Deok once impersonated a noble, so what? With what she has contributed, can't she become a commoner? Over here, the quarantine area still isn't organized properly. There are quite a few patients in critical condition. Goo Deok and everyone here are busy. They won't get a break until late at night. At this time, Sung Yun has come to find Goo Deok. You would be lying if you said that. You do not blame him. But you also admit that you have lingering feelings for John He. Let's consider that you and he are even now. So please don't feel guilty. When Sung Yun discovers the identity of Goo Deok is exposed and beaten back into slavery, you held onto her sleeve. But due to the language loss, I couldn't speak. So the words came back to me. A late apology. Sitting still in place with deep regret for a long time. Every day the quarantine area receives many patients. But no AI has ever been diagnosed. Nor has any AI determined whether the buried ones actually had the disease or not. According to Lee Trung, they haven't received food and medicine for a long time. It's suspected that the interrogation room has been hoarding it for their own gain. Ultimately, it's all about money. Goo Deok spotted a familiar figure in the quarantine zone. That's Sung Do, my sister-in-law. Learning that the superior was here taking care of the patient, he didn't say a word and rushed to visit. Upon arrival, he punched him in the face. He said so many people sacrificed themselves for him. In a fit of rage, Sung Do blamed him for the reason why brother he is facing the death penalty. On this side, Lee Trung has received Heng, the person he betrayed 7 years ago. However, now, Heng does not seek revenge on him. Instead, she cares for him like a patient. As soon as he finished speaking, he knelt down to apologize and thank Heng on this side. The others decided to go to Iran to rescue Goo Deok. However, this trip could be life-threatening. But for Goo Deok's apprentice and Uncle Shin, who have long since considered Goo Deok as precious as family, everyone sees Goo Deok as their only master, because she taught them that even if born lowly, there's still a chance to become a decent person. Perhaps this trip won't change anything, but they must do it, even if it's only a tiny 1%. The next day, the servants, under the guidance of village chief Cha Chun, set off for Hanyang. Returning to the quarantine area, when Sung Do was helping to care for the patients, he accidentally sprained his wrist. Lee Chun kindly gave him some medicine, and said that just taking it would relieve the pain. The guy Hyo-sun also came here to volunteer. Because food and medicine had run out, he was forced to go up the mountain to gather herbs, then bring them to the quarantine zone for the patients to drink. According to Hyo-sun, this disease is not contagious. Regardless of contact or living together, patients are not at risk of infection. Even stranger, Hyo-sun had prescribed many medicines that were effective for the illness, but none worked. Everyone immediately deduced that perhaps the infectious disease was transmitted through contact between open wounds. Hearing this, Young pressed Lee Jong's infected hand against his own cheek. Sure enough, until late at night, he didn't show any unusual reactions. But if the disease wasn't contagious, so what is the cause of the infection? At that moment, Sung Do felt pain in his shoulder. His arm had a red rash. It seems he has fallen ill. Lee Trung suddenly realized that it was the medicine called Kut Kanhon that Sung Do had taken in the morning. This medicine is very common. It's available at any pharmacy. It turns out each patient has a different illness. They took Kat Kanhuan to relieve pain, and that's how they got infected. The interrogation room secretly concealed relief supplies, issued by the court. Over here, the Grand Supervisor and Dupun began to suspect Park Yin. The Grand Supervisor suspects Park Yin possesses crucial evidence, but refuses to turn RA over. This shows that he wants to prolong the case. Later, the chief investigator sent someone to look into it, and found that he frequently appeared on the drug-selling street and nearby areas. The chief suspected he was plotting something. Then, Hyo Jun confirmed precisely that other patients also only used Kat Kanhon. I think there's a mixture of bloodgrass in there. This is a type of poison herb. It has been documented in the manuscript. Just consuming it will lead to chronic poisoning, ultimately resulting in death. The smell of bloodgrass is very pungent. Hearing this, Goo Deok immediately understood. The herbs were stored in Park Jun's warehouse. Is that poisonous plant? At this point, Goo Deok has figured it out. Park Yun is not trying to make money from the epidemic, but he is using the poisonous plant to spread the infection. Little did they know, while everyone was discussing, someone was eavesdropping outside the door. Over here, Dupun's secret investigation has also been exposed. I received news from my subordinate Park Yum that is quite troubling. An outbreak. The money earned is not enough to share with the generals at this moment, so he barged in uninvited. She offered a plan to Park Yum. She is pregnant. She doesn't want the child. Along with her lowly status, she is looked down upon by others. So she said to interrogate, to kill everyone in the quarantine area for monitoring, to leave no trace, while she continues to help him make money from the pandemic, because no AI would suspect. A concubine 7. just wandering around out of boredom. In exchange, she wants to become the main seven of Park Aeon. Meanwhile, Seo Hun and Goldnook find a way to detoxify. It is a type of medicinal herb. Its name is the root of white flower snakegrass. It's not rare, but it's very scarce in the surrounding mountains. The guards are Park Jun's henchmen. They definitely won't let them go out to search. Sung Yoon and he gang take on the responsibility. The secret to escaping the quarantine zone. Through the gate with no guard. That morning, Lady Kim received news that Park Yun had lied about the summit. He claimed the wind carried the germ. So he led the army to incinerate the quarantine zone. Just as dusk fell, the soldiers rushed in. They gathered the patients together. The quarantine area immediately descended into chaos. The cries of despair echoed. Park Yun personally arrived at the scene. At this moment, Goo Deok exposed Park Yun's schemes, creating a fake epidemic. But she received a crushing slap in return. The anger within Goo Deok erupted. At this point, she'd rather die with honor. You say the opposite. Park Yun is a slave of the left minister. It's true. Wasn't he also a slave of the left minister? One day, you will be like those subordinates who were harmed by the left minister. You will become a pawn to sacrifice. Then he will hand you over to the outside. Park Yun only caught He gang collecting herbs in House Hun. He smugly waved his hand. He ordered his subordinates to burn down the quarantine zone. At the same time, the Grand Inspector was worried. How? To obtain evidence of the interrogation room's crime? Suddenly, a dark shadow appeared outside the door. It was Sung Yoon, seriously injured. He lost his ability to speak. He bit down on his thigh, trying to say something. In the rooms, there was a mixture of herbal medicine. And people didn't have to wait for death, but for a savior. The chief commander controlled the guards. He brought antidotes to each patient. But when asked about the whereabouts of the enemy, Du Kun shakes her head. The next day, so he hugs the medicine. The pills are intended to poison outside. She has no choice but to force Aunt Kim to take the medicine. At that moment, the chief inspector arrives with people to search. They come to confirm the crimes of the Parkium room. He knows everything has been exposed, so he shifts all the blame onto. So he, saying that it's all her doing. At this point, no AI can escape. And before being caught, Parkium only realized that the general had testified against him and ordered his punishment. Karma. Finally, it returned to the wicked Parkium. Not long after, Sung Yoon did not survive the days of hardship in prison. So why did Sung Yoon leave? It's said that when Sung Yoon went to Hanyang, he informed the chief about the illness. At that time, he wanted to die in place of Jeonhee. He was already very ill, so before leaving, Young Yoon wanted to help Jeonhee and Goo Deok be together. He was so wicked to keep her waiting for 7 years. It seems this is the thank you that you wanted to send to her. However, according to the movie, we see Sung Yoon returning home. But when she sees Goo Deok and Jeonhee together, it is from that moment that you could no longer return to your home. After that, the slaves released from quarantine will be taken back to their old places. Goo Deok one last time, with the status of a person from the external ministry, who stood up to advocate for them. She said that these servants are mostly people who could not endure their masters and thus fled. The suffering they endured was different for each person. But when in quarantine, they day and night cooked porridge, prepared medicine, helped gather wild vegetables, and cared for the patients diligently. Thanks to that, the patients survived, until Parkium was brought to justice. Therefore, they deserve a chance to live a better life. The director, who already felt guilty about the things he had done before, saw that Goo Deok Yi was truly devoted to others, and did not make any excuses for himself. The chief judge respects her even more. He announced the verdict from yesterday's trial. The magistrates from Chinsu County and the people submitted a petition, asserting that she is a compassionate person, concerned about the oppressed citizens. The magistrates all knelt outside the court, risking their lives to protest against the servants, therefore enduring the punishment of being beaten with a plank, but still refusing to back down. The wives of the matriarch prayed day and night, praying for the supplies. Truly touching. They vowed to remove their noble attire. The slaves, not only forgiving the crimes of the emperor, is to disrupt customs. Furthermore, they want to reward her for entering the quarantine zone to uncover the truth, saving the country from crisis. Finally, the court has approved for Goo Deok Yi to escape the status of a slave and become a commoner. As for Park Yun, no matter how many punishments he endures, also did not reveal the appearance. Do not know if he is truly loyal, or if he knows his end is near, and that so he has been demoted to a servant, because she is the concubine of a traitor. While OX has a completely different fate. She walks on a path covered in flowers, a path that belongs solely to her. She has successfully reunited with her father, no longer having to live in hiding. A few years later, Madame Hong managed the maternal home in an orderly manner in Chinsu district. Thanks to the aloe vera, it became a famous tourist spot. Far and wide, Father Chun began to consider the matter for the runaway slaves who settled in Cholsu County. Sung Jo and Miriam's daughter was named Baggy, and Goo Deok and Jeonhee's son was named Seo Young. Finally, Goo Deok's dream came true. A life with his father and loved one by the sea. This is the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. See you all in the next video.